the size of baseballs. That would be in that tornado warned area, in and around the Canaan area, and on to the south from there. Really just south of Owensville, down towards Oak Hill. You're going to get in on this in about 2 minutes. Gary, we're going to pause. We're going to begin our 5 o'clock news, and we'll come right back and continue tracking these storms.
A very good evening to you. You're watching 5 on your side at 5. We begin tonight in weather alert. Storms moving through our area as we speak. Our first alert weather team is monitoring and tracking these storms by the minute. We want to get over to them. Gary and Scott right now.
Yes, we are in storm alert, and we continue to be for the next several hours. Myself and Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell are standing by here. We have multiple tornado warnings right now. The most significant one has produced upwards of 97-mile-an-hour winds at the V.C. Raleigh Airport. So this has a history of wind. Now, while a tornado is not confirmed and on the ground, we still have this tornado warning due to the radar signature. And what we're going to look at for a couple of different things, specifically, the hail threat is going to be a big issue today and the rest of the next several hours. So for the areas that are still involved in this, Cuba, you are involved in this now as well. And as I just kind of give you an idea of what's going on here, the specifics are the fact that we have this tornado warning still in place until 5:15, Crawford, Franklin, and Gasconade County. So I want to look at a couple of different things. The hail scope, this is how significant this hail is, even as I look this up. So even as I zoom in just a little bit, and I want to show you where some of the most significant hail, and this is where you're likely seeing that upwards of baseball size hail or tennis ball size, hen egg size hail that we've seen, but we're going to see that possibility for that size hail. So as we continue to begin the start of our 5 o'clock news, we're going to continue in storm alert with updates for you by the minute.
This is 5 on your side at 5, focused on you.
A very good evening to you. We are in storm alert this evening. Severe weather making its way through the bi-state. If you're just joining us, good evening. I'm Brent Solomon. Of course, our team hard at work right now. I want to send it right back over to our team of meteorologists who are tracking the storm as it's moving through our area right now. Here's Gary Frank joining us now.
Yeah, good to see you again, Brent. Myself and Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell are standing by. We're looking at several severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warning. This specific, the only tornado warning for separate counties, as I mentioned, Franklin, Gasconade involved as well. But we'll still zoom in on this. You'll notice the rotation, and I'll look at the velocity product for you shortly. The rotation, it's starting to straighten out a little bit, but those peaks, that's where you're likely seeing the largest hail as I zoom in and I show you the hail. But I want to get back to the velocity product because this is still something that even as we look at storms upstream where you continue to see that, we don't have quite that mix of things where we were showing that significant radar couplet here that we so often look for with the velocity of the red and the greens. That's wind away from the radar. That's wind toward the radar. That's where you're seeing that spin, and we have had that, and that's why we started the tornado warning. But we've also had a history of 97-mile-an-hour winds. So if there's two things that we take away from what's going on right now, is the fact that we have significant winds possible, we have very large hail possible, and there will be a few tornadoes that are not out of the question. That's why we have an area-wide a tornado watch until 10 o'clock. So as Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell has been standing by, he's been in touch with some of our emergency managers, got updates, law enforcement as well. And Scotty, what's been going on? We've seen this for for a while now. It's really started to pop off.
Yeah, it's really this storm. The one storm that is really getting all the attention right now is the one that's working through southern portions of Gasconade County as well as northwestern portions of Crawford County. That's the one that has the tornado warning in effect right now. And so at this point, that is the biggest storm of concern as you continue to watch that move towards the east and towards the northeast. Yes, there is rotation in it. There's no doubt about that. We have rotation in here, but it's more of a potentially straight line wind situation where you're looking at 97-mile-per-hour wind gusts that was reported in and around the Vichy Raleigh area. Just a few minutes ago, heading down into St. James, the law enforcement's reporting strong winds and blinding rain there. Just a few minutes ago, hail being reported in and around the Union area. So again, we have a severe thunderstorm warning. That's for the storm south of Washington, now pushing in through Union. You have your tornado warning for the storm of the day so far. This one that is in southern portions of Gasconade County, it is really rolling right along Highway 19 at this point. And that is the one that is really, as it's moving through Oak Hill and sliding to the east, you're likely seeing about tennis ball, maybe even baseball size hail in this area. So some very large hail being reported with these thunderstorms. The radar is estimating upwards of, close to 4-inch hail, which is getting up there. And that's a bad thing. We have numerous reports of hail from these storms as they are moving through. And they're moving very quickly. It's only about 35, 40 minutes when you're dealing with all of this, but you do need to be in your safe spot. Our concern here with this storm that's over Union and moving just south of Washington, kind of staying just north of 44, odds are that's going to come into West St. Louis County, and it's going to come into parts of St. Charles County. That's our thinking right now, generally right along the Missouri River. Now, with this type of scenario, this storm is out by itself ahead of the cluster of storms, and we're kind of starting to see that line form back to the west. So we're going to watch that one very carefully, Gary, because as we know, any storm that's out by itself at the leading edge, it has an atmosphere that hasn't been impacted by other thunderstorms. And so potentially significant weather could get worse in and across Franklin County and eventually perhaps into St. Louis County. So just kind of recapping there, Gary, you're looking at it. You've got the storm down by Washington. You've got what's going on out 70 here towards High Hill too.
And 70 is an area that we're going to look at specifically because we have smaller hail. I was just looking at some of the hail scope, but that's an area where we've had 500-sized Travis Cummings. He's been on our storm tracker, and I want to see if we can get in touch with him to see what's going on, because while there is no tornado warning in those areas, we've got some significant areas. So Travis, first of all, good afternoon. What's going on? Where are you, and what are the conditions like?
Gary, Scott, good afternoon. We are headed west on I-70. We just got past the Wentzville area, headed into the Floresdale area. And I want to get right out to our roof camera because I want to show you as far west as we go, we're starting to see how dark it gets. We just started hitting that point where we're getting some drizzle. We weren't experiencing that a few minutes ago as we passed through Wentzville, but again, once you get west, further west, you're starting to see that those dark clouds come in, as well as that little drizzle. Now, I just got off the phone with St. Louis County Emergency Management, so listen up here, because this is going to apply to all of us in the bi-state as we have that hail, as we have those strong winds come through. They want to make sure people have multiple ways to be informed and receive alerts. Have a weather radio inside that'll give you updates directly when they have a tornado issued a watch or a warning. You want to follow us, KSDK, on air and online, as well as the National Weather Service. You might be seeing some lightning out there, so pay close attention to our roof camera because we just started seeing some lightning as we're traveling west in the Floresdale area. But again, follow us, follow the National Weather Service, knowing what to do when they sound the sirens. That's going to be important for tonight. They'll do that, sound that off for two things: a tornado warning or a severe destructive storm. That means that they have baseball-sized hail and then 80-mile-per-hour winds. And I'm just going to flip it back up. Actually, I'm going to keep it here just in case we see a little bit more lightning. But again, you want to make sure that you have all of the information that you need. If you're on the road, you want to get off the road as soon as possible and get to shelter. If you're at home, like Gary said, you want to make sure you get to the lowest area.
Thanks so much, Travis. Stay safe. You're going to start to see, you're going to absolutely start to see some more visuals here shortly, and we'll keep you posted on what's going on out there. I do want to look at not only where he is on 70, and you can see what he's going to run into. Right now, not a severe thunderstorm warning just yet, but lots of lightning and some smaller hail. We do want to get back to that storm that has that tornado warning still at this moment. And what you're going to see is it is weakened a little bit in circulation. But Scott, this is something that you've been looking at as well as chatting with those emergency management partners. And what's been going on right now? Have we seen any of those reports of larger hail actually come to the ground?
We've seen tennis ball size hail being reported, but the radar is indicating at this point we may be looking at hail baseball size to perhaps up to softball size. And that is indicated coming into the Oak Hill area right now. That's in Gasconade County. So right on the Gasconade and Franklin County line is where we're looking at some of this largest hail. We're thinking that's going to track off to the east here, and it's in the tornado warned area. So, we can't rule out that there's something going to spin here, but we've had reports of trees down and power poles down in the Vichy area. The airport, the Vichy-Rala Airport, which is located very close to Vichy, reported a 97-mile-per-hour wind gust as these storms rolled through. So again, that is significant. That will cause a lot of damage, and I think that's what we need to be prepared for. Strong winds. You're going to see some large hail out of some of these thunderstorms. The one right now that's working across the other parts of Franklin County is also producing large hail, not quite that large as it's moving south of Washington, but this is the one that's going to get into the metro area here within the next 10, 15, 20 minutes. Between now and 6 o'clock, we'll start to see this action picking up. Yes, there is some rotation in there, but the rotation is not really as much of a concern as the large hail. Again, it could be up to the size of maybe a golf ball or ping pong size ball. But the hail around Oak Hill that's pushing in down towards Japan into southwestern portions of Franklin County, this area down in here is going to be looking at the potential for hail at least to the size of tennis balls, perhaps to the size of baseballs or larger. And I would expect the National Weather Service in St. Louis will extend either the tornado warning or come out with an extension on the severe thunderstorm warning for this area as it moves to the east. Got to watch that storm around Union, though, as it heads up towards St. Clair. It's right along 44, right towards Villa Ridge. This is an area that we're going to be concerned about as it starts to push into the western parts of the metro area because it is a large hail producer for sure. It is definitely a large hail producer. And there's nothing out ahead of this to interrupt the flow going into the storm. So the potential that it stays as a significant storm and causes problems is going to be there. Just a quick track on that storm coming out right now of Franklin County. If we give you a time frame, 5:18 Gray Summit, Wildwood about 5:33. Of course, Wildwood's huge. Chesterfield has a huge footprint as well, 5:43 for that. The storm with the largest hail, and we're going to put a little bit of a larger track on this because that batch of hail is huge. That's really large. And so, Gary, that's what you're looking at here.
Right. And
and down to
And I was just going to mention, I was talking to producer Ashley and Eric in the back. If you want to pull up the traffic cams computer, it is very visual right now. This is that storm that you've been mentioning, Scott, and my goodness, I mean, you can really see, obviously, how low to the ground that cloud is, and this is what you're going to see a lot of, and some of them may look like a tornado, some of them may not. So we are going to keep you posted on what's going on, but this is a very visual, vivid storm with a lot of very large hail. And as I just pull up these traffic cams right along the interstate on 44, a lot of people driving by. At some point, you're going to hit this if you don't know anything about it. If you've got a friend, I'm telling you what, this is exactly what we need to let them know to avoid being on the interstate. You can't go under the underpass. That's the most significant thing. Do not do that. It's going to cause not only traffic jams, but it is unsafe. So just find a different way because this is the most significant thing. So as we continue to monitor that, as Scott has talked about over the last couple of minutes, the hail is the main threat now with this system, even though we have another 2 minutes specifically of this tornado warning. Right now it has looked like we've seen up the potential of up to baseball size hail, and that will be more of that. And that's that specific system right there. So what we're going to continue to see here as this pushes along 44, not only is it hitting all these cameras that are going to show what's going on, but it is going to get very visual and vivid here behind that. So here's where that hail is as I continue to monitor that. And what's going on here specifically is that at hail scope really shows where the significant hail is at the moment, even as it moves near Oak Hill. Now, one of maybe a positive signature in Oak Hill, staying north of Cuba and the interstate, is that some of the signatures for the most significant hail have weakened just a little bit. We're not seeing the most vivid colors that we have seen. However, this is maybe a little behind here as we stay north of the interstate. And so that's one of the things that we look at here as we're 2 minutes officially between this tornado warning being expired, Scott. I know we've got a lot of dings and updates here. We're minutes away from that. I think it's probably going to be allowed to expire as obviously as it just happened. So as I move this out of the way, tornado warning is going to be expired. It's going to be continued as a severe thunderstorm warning as well. And Scott's going to have more on that. What's up, Scotty, with this one?
Yeah, that severe thunderstorm warning just issued right now, and that's going to take us until about 6 o'clock tonight. And that's basically taking this storm that is right now coming out of northwest Crawford County and southeastern portions of Gasconade County. That is going to track that farther to the east. And so that's what we're going to be looking at here as it pulls onto the east. Large hail is the big threat, at least 2-inch hail. It looks like it's come down a little bit, but there still may be some hail getting close to baseball size in there. If you're in Sullivan, you are really going to see this here in the next 10, 15 minutes. You're going to get pounded by that hail. In St. Clair, you've got a few minutes before it gets to you. You can see the storm just up to your north in Union and going along 44, but this is where we have the greatest concerns right now, basically right in and around the area centered on Sullivan, Missouri. So that's part of Washington County, northwestern Washington County, the northern portions of Crawford County, a good chunk of Franklin County with 2 separate warnings right now for the 2 different storms there, and then into Gasconade County, especially south of Highway 50 in Gasconade County. So the severe thunderstorm warning will be in effect until 6 o'clock tonight. These storms, biggest threat's going to be 70-mile-per-hour winds and large hail. We are getting reports of strong winds. We've had reports of up to tennis ball size hail in and around the Drake area just a little while ago. So we know these storms are capable of producing a significant amount of damage. You get tennis ball size hail, you get a new roof. All right, your car, it's going to be a problem. That's the kind of hail that just takes out windshields and everything, dings and dents in a crazy amount. In Union, now reporting hail up to 1 inch. So that's quarter size there. And we've had a couple of reports from that too. Storm trackers looking out on 70 towards the west, and we're finding those storms now out in Warrenton. They're having some trouble here in the area around Warrenton being as strong as the southern storms. And that's okay. That's a good thing. You're probably looking at some smaller hail in and around the Warrenton area and trying to get up towards Hawk Point and then going out farther west out into Montgomery County. But go ahead, pop that storm tracker on there and we'll show you what we've got now with our storm tracker, as it is certainly out there on Highway 70. We have Travis Cummings cruising along, looking at that right now, looking at the skies, scanning the skies, and we're finding the dark skies, the ominous skies. I think that's what we're going to see a lot of, Gary, as we head through the evening hours. You're going to see some really threatening skies. You're going to see some really scary clouds. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a tornado or that you're going to get the worst part of the storm, but it does mean that we are going to be looking at the potential for some heavier rain and hail and gusty winds. Travis, what are you seeing right now?
Hey Scott, that's right, we're on I-70 headed west. We're in the Warrenton area, and I kind of want to get right to our roof cam because it is definitely dark here. We're just starting to get those heavy winds and that rain to its fullness. We had just passed through St. Charles and it was nothing like this about 20 minutes ago. But right now we're definitely starting to see that lightning. You can see that kind of popping up there. And of course, the darker clouds are starting to get there. Again, you know, we don't know how far this is going to go, but emergency management is telling us to make sure that we're staying informed, make sure you're signed up for all of your alerts, whether that's through Channel 5, whether that's through the National Weather Service, so that you can make sure that you're in an area and you get to safety as soon as possible, especially if you're not at home. If you're at home, of course, you want to get to the lowest area in your home, away from those windows, those glass doors. But if you're in your car, the best thing, Gary said, do not go under any underpasses, overpasses. Make sure you just get to an area where you can go inside and leave that car. But we're going to pass it back to the studio right now. We're checking things right here. We're keeping up to date on things here in the Storm Tracker.
Yeah, one of the reasons we did not send Travis down Highway 44 is because that notoriously is a very bad stretch of road when we have bad weather. And it's also a stretch of road where there's not a lot of options for, getting to a safe spot easily if we need them to take shelter. We do know that as you go down 44, you're running into that large hail once you pass Sullivan. Now, indications are that that hail size has come down a little bit and maybe perhaps just a little less right now than what we were seeing earlier. We were looking at 3 to 4 inch possible diameter hail, which puts it up there, that tennis ball size hail. It looks like it may have come down just a little bit as this is racing off towards the east and northeast. Having said that, the storm that's now exiting out of Union and pushing in here along and north of 44 towards Gray Summit and out along 100, that's probably producing hail that's between quarter size and perhaps up to egg size as it's moving to the northeast. So be prepared for dangerous straight line winds and wind-driven large hail. There is the potential that these storms may start to spin at some point once again, and you can't rule out a brief spin-up tornado, but I think we're getting to the point now where they're forming into that line with the exception of the Washington, the one that's south of Washington just moving through Union. That one's out by itself. You got to watch that very carefully, but we're coming into more of a line here where it's going to be more of straight line winds. And again, keep in mind, the Vichy Rala Airport had a 97-mile-per-hour wind gust, and we have had reports of up to tennis ball size hail. The reports tend to come in a little bit behind what we're looking at with what's on the radar screen. So it takes a little bit for all that information to get filtered through the system and before we get reports. But be prepared for the large hail just coming right up 44, now moving into Sullivan if it's not already there. Cuba a few minutes ago had some large hail reported there. So again, these storms are rapidly moving towards the northeast at about 40, 45 miles per hour. The good news, the only good news that we have is you won't be under the torrential rain, the hail, and the wind for an extended period of time. It's usually about 15 or 20 minutes, and then it kind of moves on. And you'll still have some steady rain behind it, but it will get much cooler. These are dangerous storms. You want to be inside, basically away from all the windows and doors and on the lowest level of whatever building you're in. If you can get into the basement, that's great. Basement's fine. Make sure you're wearing your shoes. Make sure you have a pillow or maybe a bike helmet, something to protect your head in the event, when you have wind-blown hail, if you have hail that's the size of 2 inches, the size of an egg, and you're whipping that around with 60, 70 mile per hour winds, that's going to smash through some windows too. So that's why we're saying away from windows, away from doors, inside the center part of your house, the lowest floor, bathrooms, closets, in the hallway, that's perfect. If you have a basement, I'd still go there, even with no tornado warning in effect right now. Still, these are rough storms, and they mean incredible business here as they're pushing towards the St. Louis area. One would anticipate we will continue to see additional warnings. You see down on the bottom side of this now into Phelps County and the southeastern portions of Phelps County into Dent County. We're starting to see some new warnings issued there for the potential of large hail as well as these strong winds. This is going to race to the east and to the northeast, and we're going to have to deal with this. So if you're anywhere from the metro area down to the south and southwest, be prepared because this is where the worst of the storms appears to be going. And you're looking at the hail scope right now, Gary.
Yeah, it's still continuing to have that stronger signature, and maybe not as strong as the one earlier with the tornado warned storm that has expired, but this is the strongest that we've seen of recent. As I look at some of the MoDOT cams along 44 near Bourbon, I don't specifically see hail falling. That doesn't mean anything because those cameras are not 100% high quality all the time. But one thing that we're looking at is there's still people on roads, unfortunately, but this is where some of the hail core is specifically, and that's where you're likely seeing upwards of maybe golf ball size hail, at least based on what the radar is indicating. And so as we continue to see this work its way, and it's staying north of the interstate here at this point, as you can see that latest update. And it's not only the only area, because right near the interstate, that's another spot specifically that continues to move up. And I think that's the most significant part of this severe weather threat right now. We've had, obviously the tornado warning earlier, several counties, that's expired. As Scott has mentioned, this is probably turning into more of a wind and hail threat than anything. Still doesn't mean we can't have a tornado warning at some point, but the most significant thing here as we continue to look at some of this near Bourbon on 44, we're going to see how the hail reports are, and that could still strengthen as it works its way into an area that has heated up once again after the first part of the day. We still have that hail that continues to move to the north and northeast. So Union Villa Ridge, this is still for the most part staying north of the interstate. But the other storm that we have to monitor for hail, especially, is that one that's heading a little bit closer to Chesterfield, which is this one specifically. And you can see it's going to get into that funk where it's close to the radar, so you're going to see it distorted a little bit. But still doesn't mean we're not going to have the opportunity for some larger hail and damaging winds. At least we're seeing a lot of nickel, dime size, quarter size at the very least, Scott, and that's one thing that we continue to look at. So as this storm moves off to the northeast at about 40 miles an hour, I want to put a track on some of this for you, specifically with this hail area, which I'll circle, and you're really going to see it as you follow along with us right here. Because that's where some of these pinks that are starting to show up just on radar, if I don't even put the hail scope on. And because of that, it has to do with the reflectivity and how the radar picks up those particles. And obviously, hail's a little bit bigger than everything else, right? And so as we look at this area north, this is Wildwood, Ballwin. These are a few of the areas that I just go ahead and if you got a car that's outside the garage, you got to find a way to put something maybe under an awning safely. Just going to go ahead and give you that half-hour heads up right now, because I think that it's possible that we could see up to golf ball size hail with this storm, Scott, as we're kind of looking up. I do want to look at that MoDOT cameras. We've had a couple of them, and specifically, not only was it raining a little harder, this is the one that's north of Bourbon here, very close to Bourbon. So we're going to see more of views like this along the interstate here as we flash it back to the radar here. But once again, giving you about a 15 to 20 and 30 minute heads up for this storm specifically for some larger hail, maybe up to golf ball size, but I just want you to safely pull your car in the garage, get inside, and stay inside, Scott, because we've got wind and hail that we're really going to be dealing with for the next 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, and that storm you're tracking right now, that produced 2-inch hail. So that's the size of an egg as it pushed in and across the areas just east of Union. The state troopers reported that from the Missouri Highway Patrol. So again, it's starting to look a little gnarly here to the west of St. Louis. That's what it looks like right now as you're looking out from St. Charles, looking back towards the west. Here are the storms as they are moving about 40 miles per hour to the northeast. You're starting to see more of a line developing out to the west here of St. Louis, getting into more of a line as you head down from the Rolla area to Steelville to Sullivan and then back up east of Herman. But then you have that one cell that's out here that's just over Washington and now pushing towards Labadie, and it's going to try to move right up the Missouri River at this point as it's sliding towards the east. So that's going to impact the western parts of the metro area. And again, at this point, what we're thinking is these are a large hail and damaging wind kind of threat, more significant than most of what we see. A lot of times we have quarter-size hail. That's severe. It can cause damage. But in this case, you're doubling the size of that hailstone, and you're also adding quite a bit of wind with it. So it's just kind of, we go down here through Franklin County and then heading down towards Dent County, you're looking at that line. So if you're in Washington County, if you're in the eastern portions of Franklin County, Jefferson County, and in the rest of the St. Louis metro area, we will be tracking these thunderstorms with the very large hail in and across the region during the course of the next 2 hours. I know City SC has a game. They are slated in about 2 hours to take the pitch. Major League Soccer will determine. They have meteorologists on staff that are site-specific for St. Louis. They are analyzing the radar. They will make a call. And we'll let you know if we hear anything from them, but they'll make the call. It's possible they will delay the game and see the match later this evening. But the big thing right now is everybody staying safe. Severe thunderstorm warning continuing here in Franklin County. And also, I'll add these back on so you can see the polygons. Also, northwestern Washington County back into Crawford County, southeastern portions of Gasconade County, although you're probably going to see things letting up there pretty quickly. And then that one storm that's working its way just south of Washington and just east of Washington, right along Highway 100 there. That one is really looking like it's producing some large hail. This is going to be the one we have to watch coming into the metro area within the next 15 to 20 minutes, Gary.
Yeah, and one thing that we'll look at, as you mentioned, the hail, and that's what we want to zoom in and focus on specifically, is the fact that here's the history of this storm when it had a tornado warning attached to it as well. There still is some circulation as we are in storm alert here coming up on the bottom of the hour, but I want to look north of 44. You'll see where these reds and oranges were. That's where we had upwards of Doppler indicated 3+ inch hail. We've obviously had reports of it at the surface where you saw even the possibility of over softball size hail. That's how large it was. It's not at that point anymore, but you'll still look at, not only have we seen reports of 2-inch hail, but we see somewhere between 2 to 3 inch. And that's what we're going to continue to monitor here as we look at still showing a little bit of circulation on 44. But 44 was one of the spots that we didn't want to send our Travis Cummings because it's very difficult to drive down there. I've been on 44 because not only are there a lot of people on the roads, but you get in some of the side areas. And Travis is on I-70. He's probably got a little bit more visuals as we want to look outside on what's going on our Weather First storm tracker. So, you know, specifically what's going on, you see how significant the driving is here. Not only are they not going the full speed limit, but this is on 70 right into that storm on Wentzville, in Wentzville. Even as we kind of flash back what he is in specifically, just knowing on where he is. I mean, he is moving right through some of the heaviest of rain. And that may be even a side impact thing for us, the fact that these storms are going to produce some very, very heavy rain. It's difficult to be outside and drive in, and there may be some localized flooding as well, but it is certainly not our main concern. Our main concern right now is gusty wind upwards of 70 miles an hour. What we're starting to see, Scott, as these storms are not alone, not along by themselves out ahead, as they form together, we'll see, and this is maybe something to keep in mind on the Metro East side specifically, or downtown, as we look at that possible, for the most part, as we look at that possibility of a leading edge of storms that maybe bow out and give us more of a wind damage threat. It is 5:30. We are going to continue to update you here as part of our storm alert coverage here as we start you off with a few minutes of our storm alert coverage continues after this.
This is 5 on your side at 5. Focused on you.
And a very good evening to you as we begin on this Saturday evening in Storm Alert. Storms moving through our area as we speak, and our team is hard at work to keep you posted on what's happening minute by minute. A very good evening at 5:30. I'm Brent Solomon. Our Weather First team is in the Weather Center right now, and I believe we have Gary Frank standing by to fill us in on what he's seeing right now. Hey, Gary.
Good evening, Brent, and good evening to you. I have Weather First Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell standing by as well, and we'll continue to monitor these threats. Now, right now there are no active tornado warnings. There still is a tornado watch for our area until 10 o'clock, but I want to keep you up to speed on what we've seen so far. We've seen upwards of 70+ mile-per-hour winds. We've already had a recorded gust of 97 miles an hour at this moment, and so typically we will sit and absolutely talk to you and keep you up to date on severe thunderstorm warnings, but typically we would not continue to talk to you at great length if there weren't some significant damage threats involved with these severe storms at the moment. And what we're going to look at is the possibility of over 70 mile an hour wind and larger hail. We've already had reports of over baseball size hail, and that is damaging. So I want to look at first off what's going on right now on 44 from Sullivan. We'll monitor this threat, and we'll look at some of the hail specifically, because as we look at some of this hail specifically, what you're going to notice here is most of these storms will continue to work their way into the and see. And this is one thing that I just kind of mentioned as we looked at Travis's shot. If you've been following along, now we have a flash flood warning in place for Franklin County until 10:30. I know this is an area that got some very heavy rain early, but this has been moving almost nowhere for the last hour, and it's dumping upwards of, even as I pause this, you can see just the significant rainfall. It is somewhere between 1 to 2 inches of rain per hour. So that's not moving very quickly at all. So that is one thing. Also, perhaps it's not out of the question. Perhaps your phones buzz, I don't know that you're going to hear the sirens for this one, but it depends specifically. The Chesterfield area, West County, Ballwin, Des Peres, just anywhere from Eureka north of 44 in the latest severe thunderstorm warning. And Scott's been following along with this storm specifically and some of the updates. Scott, what's going on out there? This is continuing to work its way into more
and
areas.
we've had some really large hail with these thunderstorms. You know, upwards of baseball-sized hail back into Gasconade County a little earlier. That storm seems to have settled a little bit, still though likely producing hail 1 to 2 inches. And we've had reports as this storm, which is moving across Franklin County, producing up to egg-size hail, 2 inches in diameter. That's going to be moving along Highway 100. That will work its way right into Wildwood, right along 109 here. That's where your hail core is, and it's going to impact areas if it stays on the current track and stays in as strong as it is. You're going to look at that hail moving across much of the Wildwood area. Perhaps it'll stay just north of Eureka, but we can't guarantee that. And then it's going to head in towards Ellisville and Ballwin, and we'll see where it goes and if it can hold together after that. But we're talking the potential here for significant damage from 2-inch hail. That's the size of an egg. That's big. And we've seen upwards of baseball-sized hail with this storm back into Gasconade County earlier. The Vichy-Raleigh Airport with the storms that were back to the west here, we were looking at wind gusts with this around 97 miles per hour, officially recorded back there in the area around the Vichy Airport as the storms rolled through. Now you have severe thunderstorm warnings all along this line as they extend from Phelps County back into Crawford County, then into Franklin County, and now starting to push into the western parts of the metro area. As you go farther to the northwest, those storms not quite as strong, mostly some small hail with those thunderstorms out into Montgomery County. But again, what we're anticipating now is that this area out to the west of St. Louis is going to grow into more of a line, a nearly continuous line of thunderstorms. And as it does so, the anticipation is the wind threat will then become the main concern along with damaging hail. And you take large winds or large hail and mix it with those strong gusty winds, and you do create quite a bit of damage. So even though there are no tornado warnings in effect right now, and keep in mind there is a tornado watch for the entire metro area, most of the 5 on your side area from the metro heading eastbound. That's until 10 o'clock tonight. Even if we don't see tornadoes, if you take winds that are 60, 70 miles per hour and you start whipping around those hailstones and that kind of thing, you're going to be breaking windows, certainly going to have roof damage, and we're also going to be looking at a fair number of power outages as we head through time. So at this point, we have the flash flood warning that's now been issued based on that first storm that moved across Franklin County that prompted the severe thunderstorm warning. And now you have another storm coming right up in there, and that's going to produce additional heavy rainfall. So you've got flash flooding, you've got the potential of large hail, and you know these storms are still showing signs that they are packing a punch. As that scan goes around, you can see some of those bright layers getting highlighted right now. We just can't see if those storms down here in southern parts of Crawford County, as you get down south of Steelville and onto the south, they look like they're just below severe limits in those areas right now. And we do get some indicators as to how big the hail is, and those indicators on the radar have actually come down a little bit from what we were looking at earlier. Nonetheless, though, these storms are packing a punch as they move into the metro area. Here's what I want you to do. First of all, if these storms are within 5 minutes or 10 minutes of you, you really don't have a lot of options. You need to stay inside, away from windows and doors, you know, on the lowest floor. We're still doing our tornado safety rules, if you will, because these storms can produce winds and can break windows and can cause damage. So we want you inside, away from windows and doors, center part of the building, you know, hallway, closet, bathroom, and you want to be on the lowest level. First floor is ideal. If you have a basement, that's great. You know, we're going to be safe with this as these storms move through the area. Now, if you're maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes out, say you're in the valley, or you're over towards Des Peres, or you know, even in the Manchester, Ballwin, Valley Park area, yes, you're under the warning, but if your car's outside, you don't have a garage, maybe you've got time to run to one of the parking garages at an area hospital or something like that. But again, know your time frame here. If you can't do it within 10 minutes, then you don't want to do that. But that's what we're going to be seeing here, is a lot of roof damage, a lot of wind damage, power outages, and we're going to see a lot of cars dinged up. Reports of problems with windshields being knocked out and broken glass. You can see here looking down. I'm guessing that's down 44, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking down
Yeah.
44 at the turbulent skies that we're looking at here. You're going to see a lot of scary looking clouds with this too. So far, no reported tornadoes, but again, that 97-mile-per-hour wind gust about an hour ago coming out of the Vichy-Rala airport, that continues to have our interest peaked in the amount of damage it could cause. So Gary, I'm going to let you explore this cell here as it's working along 44 towards
And the other thing that I was looking at, and we've gotten some nice photos that I want to share, and I just retweeted it, but you'll take a look, and this was near Merrimack Caverns in Crawford County, a 2-inch hailstone, pretty large hail. So these storms still exist, and there are a couple additional threats that we want to keep you posted about. For one, we obviously have this severe thunderstorm warning in place as it works its way into Wildwood and just getting more. We've got upwards of, it looks like, quarter-sized hail in Union. So getting further updates. Thank you for sharing safely. This storm has moved so slow that it's already dumped upwards of 2 inches of rain in some cases. And there is an additional 1 to 3 with it. That's how juiced up the atmosphere is from top to bottom, and that's because of the storm movement being relatively slow. That's one of the reasons that not only we have 2 different threats for you, specifically really south of St. Albans, right at Missouri 100 from Gray Summit to Labadie, all the way to Union and beyond, and then up really T on St. Albans Road, all the way up to Wildwood, and it's starting to work its way north into Eureka here at 109, I think just right now at about Old State Road. So really, if you're in Ballwin, Ellisville specifically, Chesterfield, these are the areas that are okay. Once you get to Manchester and De Pere, that's what Scott was talking about. Go inside, stay inside, and don't run those errands. You're not going to be able to outrace this stuff. It's moving, although it's moving slowly, it's still going to catch up with you. So those are the areas from Crevecoeur. It has not quite made it to the interstate on 64. We obviously have a lot of cameras there, and we'll share that with you. But that is the most significant thing right now. So the storm has started to pick up in Wildwood. It's still sitting in Augusta. There may be a little break, but there's another push of that behind it. So a secondary threat with all the hail that we've seen, not only the winds that are gusting over 60 miles an hour, is the fact that we have a lot of very heavy rainfall. So these storms, even as we look at some of them, will continue that trend. Back closer to Union, I do want to look at some of the hail threats that we're seeing as we've kind of looked at our hail scope throughout. The hail not quite as large, but if we're going to pick a spot that maybe is the largest that we have seen, this is upwards of maybe that quarter size, which are some of the photos that you're sharing with me here in the short term. Like I mentioned before, typically we're not going to sit here and talk to you forever about storms that are loud and get your attention. But there are a couple of things with these batch of storms right now. Not only are we under a tornado watch, but it's the fact that they have already done damage. Winds that have gusted up 97 miles an hour, and they have a history of producing baseball-sized hail. And anytime you add those two things, we had the storm this morning. It got our attention. It was very loud, but it didn't have a history of baseball-sized hail. So you may not think about that if you're out and about and upstream, and that's why we talk about this from Ellisville, Chesterfield, Crevecoeur. This is not just a normal storm all the time. There's the possibility of that. Some of you are just going to get a very loud, very good thunderstorm, but some of you are going to get some of that larger hail, which we have gotten photos in, and we're going to continue to see that. So, Scott, any updates about what's going on with some of our emergency manager partners?
We're still getting a fair number of reports of quarter-size hail with these as the whole line is pushing off to the east. As expected, it is becoming more of a line. I added the lightning in there. Cloud-to-ground lightning strikes are pretty intense here, a fair number of them as this line is pushing to the east. The gusty winds, when you start to see that line really starting to bow out like it is here in Franklin into Washington County, right down here to our southwest, that's usually an indication that we do have strong winds with this, in addition to that large hail. So again, these are dangerous storms. We need to be inside, away from windows and doors, and protecting ourselves from these storms as they move through. A lot of cloud-to-ground lightning, a lot of heavy rain. You've got the flash flood warning in there. Let's just kind of go through the warnings as we have them right now. Severe thunderstorm warning, that now includes a good chunk of St. Louis County, especially along and west of 270, heading back along Highway 4064 and then down 44. So that's where we had that. That includes Eureka, that includes Wildwood. It does include a good chunk of the Chesterfield Valley. It includes areas all the way up to Maryland Heights, but it's the western side of Maryland Heights at this point. Now, you're also looking at that severe thunderstorm warning down into Franklin County. Much of that central part of Franklin County, looking at some of that. Still in Gray Summit, reporting some large hail right now. And then as we go farther to the south, you have Phelps County under that severe thunderstorm warning. So they are severe thunderstorm warnings. As you can see from our viewer photos here, large hail reported by this. Villa Ridge actually just reporting golf ball size hail a few minutes ago, and that may be very similar to what we're looking at there.
Yeah, this is that Merrimack Caverns one I was just mentioning just a minute ago.
Yeah, so, you know, ping pong ball size hail, golf ball size hail. You start mixing that up with 60, 70 mile per hour winds with these storms, and that's going to cause a lot of damage. And, you know, St. Louis is no stranger to hail damage. We have the two costliest hail catastrophes in the country, in U.S. history, here in St. Louis. So go back to April 2001, and I think the other one was in either 2011 or 2012. I can't remember exactly, but either way, we're no stranger to large hail here. In this case, we're dealing with it right now, falling out of the sky. If you're anywhere ahead of these thunderstorms, make your plans now to get into your safe spot before these storms come towards your back door and roll on in. They are pushing into St. Louis County. The worst of it is not into St. Charles County at this point, but probably some small hails headed towards the area around Augusta and perhaps up towards New Melle. And then you go down here with that area around Sullivan heading up towards Gray Summit. Again, these are very dynamic storms moving through. And Gary, you're pointing out another tornado warning. It's not in our viewing area, but something to be concerned about.
It's worth mentioning just because of the direction that it's pointed and the fact that we still are under tornado watch. And while we haven't had a tornado warning since about 4:35-ish, that lasted till 5:15, there are still several areas that are impacted. So just because it's not in our area, I just want to give you in Viburnum, Lesterville, Potosi, and Farmington, just a little bit of a heads up. This doesn't mean this tornado will continue this trend. This is radar indicated. There are no signs that it's on the ground. But the way that the atmosphere is set up, and while we're still seeing that rotation, although it be minor, you'll notice it's not part of that main line that we so often discuss that that is a little further north that Scott has been mentioning as we look at this main line. And I just kind of want to put this into perspective so I can point this for you, because you see how this line is impacting and it's starting to just bow out, which we so often talk about, south of Rolla. And that is what I think is going to affect areas in Farmington and on the Metro East side more than anything, as we have those gusts over 70 miles an hour possible later on as this thing works its way off to the east. However, this has not quite made that direction and made that turn, so it's worth noting that these things are still possible until we get that main line that settles in. So not only we look at that, but we look at the possibility for some still larger hail on 44. And so as we kind of look at this near Sullivan, this may be a little bit behind as well. We look at Pacific, we look at Wildwood, and you know the hail is not quite there as I zoom in, but it is picking up a little bit. In fact, this is one of the larger scans that I've seen. So, you know, this is something to look at on 44 near Gray Summit. As of recent, you can really see where I talk about those areas in the pink, and I just kind of scroll here from Labadee all the way to Gray Summit. This is right on 100. This is kind of taken 100 all the way up through the back route here, the best way to get into West County here through connected to 109. So that's not exactly an area, as I've driven it many times, this is not exactly an area that you can pull over to the side of the road. So you need to make a plan and not drive in those directions here at this point, because some very blinding rains, which is evident by the fact that we're not only in this area under a severe thunderstorm warning, but also under a flash flood warning now, because you got some pretty heavy rain earlier, upwards of a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. So it didn't take long as this storm's moving slowly. So it's fully in Wildwood right now. It is now, it's worked its way in Ellisville. It is probably nudging its well in just a little bit as well. So we're still working its way into Manchester. Manchester, you're dry for now, but this is your heads up. Even north of Manchester into Town and Country, still very, very it's very slow, and it's got up to quarter size, maybe even golf ball size hail, and that specific location that I mentioned on 100 between Ville Ridge and Wildwood, and that kind of back area where it's just a little bit more difficult to drive, and it kind of goes over the bluffs and things of that nature. So that's going to be the most difficult part for us right now. And Scott, we're seeing this slowly work its way in and into the metro and affect more people. It's more visual now, right?
Yeah, and we are getting a lot of reports of hail. I mean, numerous reports of hail. There's a lookout from Lambert right now. You see the dark skies starting to move in to the St. Louis area. And again, west parts of St. Louis County under that severe thunderstorm warning, and it's for large hail. We're just looking here, and Gary, you talked about it. This is along Highway 100 here. This really is right near that Bowles fire station that's there. You know, the yellow fire trucks there on Highway 100. I wouldn't be surprised if they had 2-inch hail within the last 10 or 15 minutes along Highway 100 as you work your way just out of St. Louis County, just into Franklin County. But that is pushing its way now on towards Kiefer Creek Road and potentially here St. Albans Road, Fox Creek Drive, Allenton Road, these areas north of 44 and, you know, western portions of St. Louis County. This is where we have that severe thunderstorm warning. This is where that large hail is going to track right now. You're just starting to get to Olive and Clarkson and Manchester Road with the rain, but not the hail. The hail will come a little bit later. You still have stronger storms coming in now around New Melle, south down towards Dutso. Then we have our severe thunderstorm that's across the rest of Franklin County. I mean, it is a rough go along Highway 44 right now as you go out of St. Louis County through Franklin County. Just not a good time to be on those highways as we are watching that rain push on towards the east right now. Here's a live look at what it looks like at this moment in in Weldon Spring. And you can see starting to get a little raindrop action there, but some dark, ominous clouds are definitely showing up in that area right now as these storms are pressing in. Broader perspective of what's going on, just to give you this idea, you have quite the area of thunderstorms here that's lining up west of the metro area and pushing towards the east and to the northeast. These storms are going to be sliding in and across the metro area during the course of the next couple of hours. With them, winds of 50 to 70 miles per hour, as well as hail in some cases, perhaps as large or larger than the size of an egg. And so we're talking about a pretty substantial threat for damage here as these storms work on towards the east. And I would bet, Gary, at this point, I'd say along and south of 70, at least on the Missouri side, that's our area of greatest concern right now, because even though we do have thunderstorms to the north, those have only produced hail up to the size of about pennies maybe. And so that's not severe. Strong storms,
Right.
yes, but not severe. And again, a lot of dangerous cloud to ground lightning with this as well. So everything's pushing to the east. Let's be in our safe place right now. Lowest floor, wherever that might be, first floor, basement, and then, you know, inside, interior rooms,
Yeah, and
hallways,
you can see,
closets.
Six Flags. This camera specifically, I looked up just a little bit further downstream, and you can't see anything at all because it's raining so hard. So I wanted to queue up the Six Flags area because it's maybe a little bit more familiar for more of St. Louisans and areas in the bi-state have traveled over this, and you can see how hilly it is. I would bet here within the next few minutes that you're not going to be able to see much here because it's going to continue to work its way in. Now, as we monitor the storm that's working its way into West County that we've so often discussed is not only producing very heavy rainfall. I look at some of the reports from my good friend Tom in St. Albans, says he's got pea-sized hail on his deck. So this is what maybe a lot of you are dealing with. I just want to point out how different that is from just a little further south along that 100 area where you have upwards of quarter-sized hail at least. So I would say at minimum, you're going to get that pea and dime-sized hail in some of these areas, and that's where you're like, well, this is not that significant. Well, then we share a few of these photos where we have golf ball, baseball sized hail and winds that are gusting. And so that's what we're going to continue to see here moving forward. So as we are fully at Wildwood now at 100 and 109, and so let's go ahead and take a look at the fully stopped traffic. And this is why that we didn't send Travis there, our Travis Cummings here, because there are a couple of issues. I mean, this is that almost that same camera, really is. Play around with these cameras doing traffic in the morning, and I'm telling you what, this is what you're going to run into if you try to fight the storm. Stay home, stay off the roads as best as you can, or at least find an area that you're able to get away from, because as you're very familiar with, 44, you have the exits, but some of those exits don't turn off for a while. And we don't want you under these underpasses. We don't want you on the roadways the best that we can because we have had that significant, not only hail, but the wind threat. And that's going to be difficult because this is that's starting to bow out now just a little bit there from Potosi. And that is not an area that's involved in a severe thunderstorm warning at the moment in Farmington, but that's something that we're going to continue to look out for. South of Chesterfield, I know it's a little bit distorted because of the radar and its proximity, but I do want to update some of these areas in West County that I have not mentioned so far because it has finally made it to that Clarkson Valley Olive, really right at, I would say the leading edge of it is probably at the Mellow Mushroom there, right past where some of the banks are. So it's getting pretty close to that here as it's worked its way from Ellisville and further north. So really we're at Trader Joe's right there. You're quiet for now, but that's a little bit of radar distortion. So I just want to give those areas a heads up. Now 141 north, 64, Creve Coeur, Frontenac, Des Peres, Town and Country, still okay for now. This storm's moving a little slower than the others, but it's a blinding rain and you're under a flash flood warning. We've already seen 1 to 2 inches. And the areas south in that cell specifically, like we just showed you, that has most likely the areas where you're seeing that up to maybe at golf ball size hail at the moment. So it's not as large as it has been, but it still is something that's significant here as we look off. And then Sullivan, behind that, there still is some very blinding rain. And Scott, as we continue to monitor the hail threat, a lot of lightning, wind, I would expect that we're going to see more severe thunderstorm warnings ahead of this. So the Illinois side is going to be, or even areas in Farmington are going to be soon. It's just not a matter of if, but when.
Yeah, and we now have a new severe thunderstorm warning for the southern part of this storm here, the one that's been over the southern portions of Franklin County, central portions of Franklin County, down into Washington County. National Weather Service has now issued a severe thunderstorm warning to take us all the way to essentially the Mississippi River with this storm through much of Jefferson County and back across northern portions and northeastern portions of Washington County. That's going to run until 6:30 this evening. We are getting numerous reports now of damage, wind damage in and around the Sullivan area. Images showing large trees snapped at the base. We've also had reports that have been confirmed by law enforcement in the Sullivan area of roof damage, or I thought I saw something here just a minute ago, and give me a second because we got so many of them. Roof off a building that was reported by law enforcement and confirmed by law enforcement in Sullivan, Missouri. And again, we have some scattered power outages. They're not dramatic except in the area where we saw that 97-mile-per-hour wind gust out in Marys County in the Vichy-Raleigh area. Gasconade County has a large number of folks out, but not so many in Washington County or Crawford County just yet. We'll see. 50 to 60, maybe 70-mile-per-hour winds with these storms. Certainly the potential is there for very large hail, and we have seen that ongoing here as we've been working through the last little bit here. There's a little bit of hail there showing up, kind of just working right along the Washington Franklin County line, and then along 44, and then we've got it working up into West St. Louis County. That's probably the largest hail approaching the Eureka area right now, and it looks like the radar is telling us that that's about still between 1.5 and 2 inches. And I'm not going to dispute that because we have a large number of reports of 1.5 hail, which is the size of a ping pong ball out in West St. Louis, far southwest St. Louis County, and then down into Franklin County. Tornado watch remains in effect until 10 o'clock tonight. Right now, it's these severe thunderstorms that we are dealing with. These thunderstorms with large hail, damaging winds, pressing into the metro area at this point, and will continue to swing on through as we go through the next couple of hours. So you want to be inside, away from the windows and doors, and you want to be on the lowest floor. And, if that wind starts howling and that hail starts pounding your roof and your windows, make sure you're getting into the center part of your building just to be safe, even though we don't have any tornado warnings in effect right now.
Well, as we continue to monitor that, as you mentioned, that tornado watch still in place, that's something I want to look at for just particularly, why are we still under a tornado watch? If this is turned into a hail and wind threat, I want to look at the specific areas. Now, we have had one tornado warning, right? No confirmed tornado, but we've had significant wind. And if there's going to be a spot that it happens at this point, I think it's on the leading edge of this. And I want to show you why that is, because as we monitor from Washington, Union, St. Clair, Sullivan, you can start to see, and I'll zoom in, just how some of these colors are mixed at the leading edge. And that's where some of that rotation is. And this is a spot that we're going to look at. Now, there are no warnings, and I don't expect them to be at these specific areas, but I just want to show you why that's setting up along that when you compare it to what's going on with the radar. It's that leading edge, that Boeing line, and there are little circulations and eddies that are perhaps created as they continue to move. So that's going to be something here moving forward that we look at. Otherwise, it is the hail that is right now south of Wildwood, and we'll continue. Yeah, let's look at the MoDOT camera right now. It's we've got some pretty significant looks, and this is that one at Six Flags, and you know it's raining obviously very hard. It's very difficult to drive, but you know you don't really have too many spots to go on the side of the roads here. So right now, the core of the hail, and I want to look at this specifically because it's going to be a little behind, but this perhaps can give you maybe a better idea. So we are specifically this is north right of. This is staying north of Fox Run. This is in Eureka. This is right now specifically. It's sandwiched really in between that drive, which once again another drive that you don't want to make because there's not many spots you can pull off. I've made this drive multiple times from Wildwood to Eureka. As you get closer to the high school, you go over that area. There's not many spots that you can pull aside, and that really is where the most significant hail is, where we could see upwards of 2-inch hail. And you see that core here, and this is south of really downtown Wildwood, further south. It really is north of the high school for the most part. So it's right in between that drive. So as you look on Old State Road, this is probably a little bit further behind. This is one of the areas that I would expect south of Ellisville, even though it's moving slowly. That's where, these are the areas that I would say right now you might want to be able to try to get your car in. Somewhere between Ballwin, Manchester, and Valley Park, anywhere on 141, just as a heads up, because obviously there are many more spots that you could pull out, but you know, Sulphur Spring Road, anywhere into Winchester, these areas specifically are dealing with probably the most significant hail with upwards of 2 inches. And while it may not be specifically doing that everywhere, that's the main threat right now here as we continue to monitor this threat. We are in storm alert coverage. It is getting close to the top of the 6 o'clock hour, so we are going to do a little refresh and start off and say hello to our good friend Brent Sullivan. But you're watching storm alert coverage on 5 on Your Side.
This is 5 on Your Side at 6. Focused on you.
And a very good evening to you at 6 o'clock on this Saturday. We want to thank you for joining us for 5 on Your Side. Our Weather First team is hard at work to keep you informed and safe. Let's get over to them right now in our Weather First Center. Gary.
Good evening, Brent. Weather First meteorologist Gary Frank with an update. I'm standing by with Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell, and we've got this wide area of storms that will continue to work its way in. We have multiple severe thunderstorm warnings. We have gusts. We have seen upwards of baseball-sized hail, and Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell is standing by. He's been kind of getting some of the latest things as we continue to monitor that. But what we're going to continue to look at here in the short term here before we get to Scott is I want to zoom in just a little bit because some of these specific areas here from Sullivan to Gray Summit, you have already seen some of this larger hail. But as we put this into motion here, we're going to continue to see that leading edge. These are the areas from Wildwood to Pacific to Rich Woods to St. Clair and Union. And this is where the drive is that we have from Wildwood. That's where the hail core is. This is probably where the most significant hail is, between Wildwood and Eureka. And really, if you are in probably De Pere, Manchester, and Ellisville, these are the areas that I'd like for you to look at because we still have some of that behind on 44 in St. Clair, even as we zoom in. This is obviously distorted by how the proximity of where the radar is here in Weldon Spring. And I want to look at some of the areas of hail here as we zoom in and kind of give you an idea of what's going on, because there are two specific things. Not only is this severe thunderstorm warning in place until 6:15, of course, we'll keep you there, but normally we would not be talking to you specifically about storms all the time. But look at this hail, and it's the most significant hail that we've seen in a while. And I think as we kind of zoom into some of this, there's some pretty significant hail here as we look at this storm specifically. And this really, as I mentioned, is between Wildwood and Eureka on that drive as we continue to look further to the south as well. So these are the areas that we're going to monitor here as we go from Wildwood to Eureka. And the hail and the velocity products, those are some of the things that we're looking at. I do want to get to Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell, who's standing by with an update. And Scott, we've seen some of these storms, they're taking a little bit of a different shape as they get closer to the metro and metro east.
Yeah, they are. They're getting more of a line now. We're seeing more of a line developing versus seeing individual storms. Now, that one cell that is in West St. Louis County still is not really impeded by the other storms that are out there. And what I'm showing you right now, what you're looking at now is what we call the hail tracks, the hail zone, where we've seen the largest hail. And you can see in and around along 44, stretching from Sullivan, this is over the last hour or so, Sullivan, and then right up 44, you've had a couple of cells. And now, as Gary was just telling you, into West St. Louis County, we are looking at that hail as it continues to press in. Severe thunderstorm warning does continue for a good chunk of St. Louis County, especially the western part of the county. We also have a severe thunderstorm warning that extends down through Franklin County, across much of Jefferson County, and into northern portions of Washington County. We continue to get a large number of reports of hail between 1 and 2 inches. So that's quarter up to about the size of an egg, quarter size up to about the size of an egg. We've had reports of wind damage, some reports of damage down towards Sullivan. The hail in Ballwin just went from a ½ an inch, and now the spotters are telling us there's 1 inch hail there. In Pacific, just southeast of Pacific, 1.75 inch hail. That's golf ball size hail there. So that's our biggest threat right now. And if we have winds in here that are running between 50 and 70 miles per hour, you're going to whip that hail around quite a bit. Now, you're looking at this storm moving off to the east. Let's zoom in on the areas where we think there's the heaviest hail or the largest hail. And that area is coming in right now out here along Highway 109. This is where we're looking at some of the largest hail. So let's just kind of track that. As it's moving off towards the east and northeast, this is going to get into, you know, the Twin Oaks area right along 141. So you're not far off of Valley Park here. You're in that area pretty close to Parkway South High School, Parkway Southwest Middle School. That area is likely to see some of the largest hail as this storm continues to move on. And we're talking hail, again, that's going to be up to the size of maybe, you know, ping pong balls, golf balls. Then you've got the area here a little farther south, and this actually has a pretty large area that is likely producing some larger hail. So let's see if we can get that to plot out here. It's going to the edge of the screen. But Lone Dell, you've only got a few minutes before that larger hail gets there. It's already pouring in Lone Dell. Okay, and then we've got Ware and then Hillsborough. You know, these are the areas where we're expecting some of the largest hail. Eureka just reported a few minutes ago with hail up to the size of a $50. There's Six Flags again, and, you know, again, everybody's moving along slowly. It looks like maybe some of the truckers pulled off to the side of the road because not only is it the hail, but it's just raining so hard, you really have no visibility. And we're also dealing with the ponding on the roads. So that's another issue because we're getting so much rain so fast that we're having to deal with that. Now, what I don't see in that picture is the trees swaying a lot. So maybe we're not seeing that much wind with these storms. I mean, honestly, we don't know. We've had wind damage reported out of Sullivan from earlier on. We've had the winds, you know, causing problems in these areas down to the southwest of us, specifically the Vichy-Raleigh Airport with that 97-mile-per-hour wind gust. That's kind of a huge thing. And you still see there's some gusty winds along this front for sure, or along this line of storms for sure, as they're pushing in. So we would still say there's probably 40 to 50-mile-per-hour winds, if not stronger winds than that, Gary.
Yeah, and I wanted to pull that up just so people understand why the significant threat has happened. As we have this history of the fact that we had that 97-mile-an-hour wind gust, it's very anomalous, right? But that was where we had the core of the strongest wind at one time. Doesn't mean it's out of the question later on, but the potential is there as we look at the big picture. I do want to look at a couple of different things as we zoom in a little bit closer. And as they are looking at that Six Flags camera, I'd like to ask them to pull up that 64 in Maryville Center, because this is one of the things that we have mentioned at great length, and people are not going to listen, but that's the way that that's the way we have accidents. The camera at 64 in Maryville Center, I actively see people under the underpass because there's obviously some sort of hail that's fallen, so they're trying to protect their cars. That's unsafe. That's unsafe for people on the roads. That's unsafe as you get more cars there. That's how slowdowns, more things continue. So that's one of the things that we'll point out. If you get caught in this, do not stop under the underpass. It's not safe. Now, the other thing is it is raining very, very hard. From now, it has worked its way into Clarkson Valley all the way through past across 64. The big picture is going to show a couple of different things. Where this hail has been and why the core of this has weakened a little bit. And so that's the area specifically in Ballwin and Ellisville that you have perhaps some of that stronger hail. But as we continue to monitor this, I do want to look at a couple of things from right across 109. That's that drive that we still look at. But that's why it's difficult in some of these areas to pull aside. I do want to get to our Weather First storm tracker. Travis Cummings has been he's been driving along 70 because it's the easiest to get around. But last time we saw you, it was raining very heavily. Have you seen any hail out there, Travis?
In the storm tracker, we're actually headed east now on I-70, so that's back into the St. Louis area. We're kind of passing through Wentzville right now. I want to get you out to our roof camera so that you can see. We haven't seen any hail just yet. We haven't experienced that, but you can see consistent thunder happening where we are right now. But we just got a tornado warning. They're telling me, so I'm going to pass it back to you, Gary.
Thank you so much, Travis. And myself and Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell are taking a look at that, and you can take either one of us here, and we'll get back to it. But I want to look at those areas specifically, and it's the tornado warning here right now that we have for Franklin and Jefferson counties, and it is exactly due to one of those things that I just mentioned here, the leading edge of that storm that we were talking about. Those little spins, those little areas right along the leading edge of that. And so this is High Ridge. This is an area where I know there are a lot of manufactured homes and RVs and things of that nature. And this is always an area that I want to look at because right from Dittmer to Burns Mill, as we continue to put a track on this here, as we look at this specific tornado warning, this is going until 7 o'clock. So we're going to be with you until 7 o'clock. And this is one of the things, and Scott has zoomed in on it specifically. So I want to get to you, Scott, and have a look at this specifically because this is, I know from driving that area specifically, a lot of manufactured homes, a lot of RVs. This is where we really need to have your storm plan in place and get to your safe space at this point.
We're seeing a spin up here at the leading edge of this line, and that's why the tornado watch is in effect. So this is really, it looks like it's just east of Highway FF right now. So moving out of Franklin County and into portions of Jefferson County. So this is, if you can see that circulation, you see the reds and the greens there showing up. That indeed is what we're looking at for the potential of a possible spin and a possible tornado there. And that's why this warning has been issued. It's moving to the east at about 25 miles per hour. So just when we kind of look at that, and I'll just actually switch it over to that velocity product again. Here's a different kind of perspective of it. We're going to put a track on that. Just kind of take it. This is where the circulation is going to go, okay? Give or take a little bit. It's going to go along the area running to the east, including Morse Mill over to Hillsborough. Mappaville is also in the path of the storm. So this is a tornado warning. These are spin-up tornadoes at the leading edge of the thunderstorms where we're getting those surges of wind jumping out ahead of the main line, if you will, or right along that line. And that is twisting into this area that's spinning here, right around the Maupin area. And I'm going to get a little bit closer, see if we can't get some specific roads in here. And just keep in mind the areas that we're looking at here, and I'll pull this back down just a little bit and then go back in just a hair. The radar it lags just a few seconds behind. So what we're talking about here is the area that's on Engleford Road, State Road Y, Flat Rock Road, Highway WW, over towards this Cottage Farm area. And then we're going to push it a little farther to the east as you get over into the area around Hillsborough and Morse Mill. In this area, all of those subdivisions that are in there, you need to be in your safe place right now. Dangerous twisting of the wind indicated by the radar. So it's a potential tornado at the leading edge of this thunderstorm. And this tornado warning will be moving out of Franklin County and into Jefferson County as we head through the next 15 to 20 minutes. The tornado warning will be in effect for until 7 o'clock. So we're going to be, pretty much with you anyway till that time, until we can get these storms out of here. But this is the spot, Gary, where we need everybody in your safe place right now, tracking along this cell, southeastern portions of Franklin County into Jefferson County for the potential of a quick hitting tornado. Now, that's in addition to the fact that we're also going to be looking at, in this area, strong hail, strong storm in and of itself, and gusty winds. Big hail, big winds. And that's what we're going to be looking at as this pushes off to the east. Your hail maybe just a little south of that circulation right now. And again, if you're in the path of this particular storm, that does include Highway 21 as you work out of northern Jefferson County down towards Hillsborough, and also a chunk of Highway 30 there, including the Cedar Hill area. Those are the spots where we are most concerned right now, and the areas where you really need to be in your safe spot. And again, just kind of zooming in on that specific area where we are talking about. It's really going into that Cottage Farm area, the Ware area, State Highway Y, Road CC, State Road B, in this area. Rural area, very hilly terrain. You're not going to see it per se, but you will definitely have that spin moving very close to your neighborhood if you're in the path of this storm. Now, this is all along the line of thunderstorms, which has prompted our severe thunderstorm warnings right now through the entire metro area. St. Louis County into South St. Louis County, the rest of Jefferson County, and then down into a good chunk of northeastern portions of Washington County. So we want you in your safe place at this point as these storms are pressing in. Hail, damaging winds, the potential for a brief tornado here as you go down into Jefferson County. Something we cannot underestimate is that if you've got large hail, and we've had a whole bunch of large hail up to the size of eggs, and that's been whipped around by these winds, that's going to cause a lot of damage, Gary.
Yeah, and we've seen it already, and that's the thing, that we have the history of it. And while we don't have any confirmed tornadoes right now, the environment is there for it, right? We've had the wind damage, we've had reports of multiple areas with damage by hail, and that's how things are setting up. So I want to look at this area specifically. As Scott has mentioned, and I have mentioned, being on some of these roads, there are not many places to get away and on the side. So there are a lot of manufactured homes in some cases driving on at least 21 as we look a little bit further north. And so this area specifically, that's where that core of hail is. And while it's not the largest, it's probably less than golf ball size at this moment. This is still an area where we have that circulation that we look at so often. And so even if it's a little behind, and now it is on State Road Y, so let's call it at State Road Y. If you're on Highway BB, you're on 21, you're around this area, this is where you want to get in your safe place here at this moment. You got plenty of time. We're giving you a nice heads up, but don't go outside and look at this. Obviously, just because of the terrain, it may be a little bit more difficult to see, as Scott has mentioned anyway. And it's so blindly raining, and you can see that most recent radar scan update. It's starting to wrap around a little bit more, where you're seeing more of that wind with some of this brighter color here, where it is wrapping around just a little bit more. So as we continue this tornado warning until 7 o'clock, these areas now, as I mentioned, that latest scan right at State Road Y, and really from Hillsborough here, this Rain Tree Golf Club right in between, I think you can probably tell that it is darker off to the west. Let's make sure that we're all safe here and getting inside here as we remain under this tornado warning here until 7 o'clock. An additional couple of things here as we look at not only this tornado warning, but you're also obviously talking about the hail, is the fact that if we go a little bit further north, now St. Louis County is involved in this severe thunderstorm warning, where we have multiple areas and even reports that the sky is green. A lot of that has to do with the tinge of the amount of hail that we have. So I just want to keep you posted, as we don't have necessarily an active threat for a tornado warning just yet, but it's something that we'll continue to monitor here further to the south as we have the leading edge of some of these spin-ups. So once again, looking at right at this area where you can't see it, and you can't see it on radar because this blinding rain, which has had where you see traffic stopped from our Weather First Storm Tracker, that's what's going to be the case here. And Travis has taken a look on things. you are going to get stuck in the middle where everybody has the same idea that you are. And one of the reasons that you're going to get stuck is if you're trying to avoid hail under an underpass and you have a lot of cars that try to do that. It's unsafe. Don't be on the roads if you can, but absolutely do not do that, because you're not only endangering yourself, you're endangering others, because you can't go anywhere. And we have this vivid lightning here as we sit on this. There's going to be a lot of vivid lightning with the leading edge of the storm and even behind it as well. So as we still have not only some of this larger hail, we don't have large enough hail to damage cars that's out there at the moment, but it's going to be a slow crawl. And so specifically, even as we look at this, one more loop here, zooming back here, we still have multiple areas, and now St. Charles County with a severe thunderstorm warning. So multiple areas with severe thunderstorm warnings, larger hail, and of course this tornado warning. And this tornado warning is something that we'll still monitor. And Scott, you have something for him?
Yeah, that's going, the tornado warning right now does include Grandview High School.
Okay.
So that area right now, as you go down into the Grandview R2 school district right there at the high school complex, I would say it also includes the area around the DeSoto Fire Protection District too. And we've got the area from Hillsborough in this as well. So again, you need to be in your safe spot. Now, we have new warnings that were just issued in and around the St. Louis area that includes much of the rest of the metro St. Louis area. That does include St. Charles County. It includes much of the rest of St. Louis County at this point. These are gusty winds that we're seeing with these storms and the large hail moving through St. Charles County at this point. I'll give you a picture of what it looks like right now out there in the area around Weldon Spring, and you can see drenching rain right now. You see the tree is moving there, so we know we've got some wind with that rain that's ongoing there too. So now we have the severe thunderstorm warning that includes St. Charles County, much of St. Louis County, and then the tornado warning for that brief spin up here sliding across Jefferson County. The circulation is now out of Franklin County, and so the tornado warning is explicitly just for Jefferson County. It does get over to about Interstate 55 right there around Festus. And again, we just kind of put on the velocity here, and you can see the area that we're kind of tracking. It is approaching the area around Ware, and that's where the circulation is. Somewhere in this area from Ware to Cottage Farm. If you're in these areas, you need to be in your safe place right now. Lowest floor of whatever building you're in, as many walls between you and the outside as possible.
I was just looking at these circulations and taking a look at this. Now we officially have a tornado warning right now for St. Louis City and St. Louis County here as we continue to monitor. So this is where the sirens are going to actively go off as the leading edge of these circulations specifically. And while the polygon hadn't popped on here specifically, this is kind of the area that we talked about as here. And so there's the polygon specifically. So as we let Scott get caught up, I do want to look at some of the areas that are impacted by this. So not only do we have this tornado warning, which is in place here, it's until 7 o'clock here for the next 40 minutes or so, and it has to do with the leading edge of these in two specific areas. It's just like we talked about. The leading line has these little rotations and circular spins, and now Travis is starting to move at a little better pace here. We have these circular spins in these areas of rotation. So specifically from Chesterfield to Ballwin, right along 64, you have plenty of time here. But Valley Park, that's an area where we're starting to see that spin right from Ballwin. So I want you, if you're in Des Peres, you're in Sunset Hills, you're in Webster Groves, you're in Frontenac, you're in Town and Country, I want you to go inside your safe place here at this moment, because it has to do with the leading edge. You have plenty of time here all the way from anywhere in the Metro East, but right in the city from Richmond Heights and North County. And so these are areas specifically as we zoom in just a little bit more. I want to look at the last couple, especially this area in Valley Park. Once again, it seems like a common theme here, but right at 44. And it's just this specific circled area that I'm going to put on here for you, really from Valley Park right about here. And it is continuing to move. And we're still seeing it. I'm going to give you just an early heads up here as this moves. We're going to about 628 Sunset Hill. So I want to give you an extra few minutes here to kind of get caught up. And it's that specific area. And I'm going to move it around now that we've got an updated scan, because it's actually starting to pick up maybe just a little bit more, where it's a little bit more well-defined, that you can kind of see where it is specifically. And even as I pause this, it's right over Valley Park here at this moment, 270 and 44. So Sunset Hills, Webster Groves, De Pere, these are all areas that are impacted. So these are the specific areas. I think it's especially this little circulation from Valley Park, Scott. If you were to look at this specifically south of Big Bend, I think that's the area that we really have to monitor. And while it is still just a tornado warning for radar confirmed, as far as I know, this is going to affect a lot of people, and the sirens are going to go off. Your phones are going to go off. Your EAS, we have them turned off because if they go over the air, you're going to hear double amount. So they're not going off for us specifically, they're going off for you, right, Scott?
Yeah, and technically downtown where we are right now, we're not in that tornado warning polygon. But if you're in the Valley Park area, this circulation looks like it's darn near over top Valley Park High School right now and moving towards the east. So that's going to take it over towards Vianney. It's going to take it over probably into the area, maybe Kirkwood, maybe Webster Groves, in that area. You're definitely in the polygon. So that's the area where the circulation is intense, and we are seeing, a good rotating wall cloud in that area. So you definitely need to be in your safe place right now if you're in the St. Louis area, especially on the south side of the metro area, going east right now of Valley Park. So this is going to take it over through Sunset Hills. That circulation, if it's moving east-northeast, it's going to cross 270 here. As you go into Kirkwood, it is going to move right towards Crestwood. It will move towards Webster Groves. Obviously, it will cross over Lindbergh here. It'll cross over Watson Road. That's the area that we especially want you to be safe right now. It is right at this minute very close to 141 and Valley Park, and it's moving towards the east and to the northeast. So these are the areas where we need you to be in your safe place. And what that means is you're going to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. You're going to the lowest floor. If you have a basement, that's great. We're staying away from windows, we're staying away from doors, and we're on the lowest floor possible. So if you have a basement, that's great. If you don't have a basement, first floor, interior room, like a closet, like a bathroom, that's where you need to head at this point. There's a live picture right now looking from our downtown Skycam, looking back towards the west at these storms as they are pressing in right now. Keep in mind, we also have the severe thunderstorm warning, including much of St. Charles now. It did not include much of St. Charles earlier. Now that severe thunderstorm warning has been expanded to include the St. Charles area, and it includes much of the rest of the metro too. This is now a confirmed tornado. We are getting that located over Valley Park, moving about 20 to 25 miles per hour. So again, the cities we just went over, Kirkwood, Webster Groves, Crestwood, even Town and Country, Ladue, Sunset Hills, De Pere, Glendale, Frontenac, Warsom Woods, around 6:30. And then right as Manchester comes into the city of St. Louis, you're talking into the city, the western, southwestern parts of the city of St. Louis, the Richmond Heights, Brentwood, Maplewood, Shrewsbury area by about 6:35 this evening. So we are getting, a confirmation of a tornado there from the National Weather Service. It is observed and it is moving northeast. So you definitely need to be in your safe place now if you're in these areas. Large hails also occurring with these storms as well, and drenching rains. Just a quick look out into St. Charles right now. On Max 2, I have the St. Charles camera. This is looking from St. Charles back to the west, and the severe thunderstorm warning in effect for St. Charles. And this is why you got a lot of wind, you got a tremendous amount of rain, you've got hail occurring in spots with this storm, and look how dark it is. Sunset's not for another hour and 10 minutes or so, and we've gone pitch black now over the metro area. Golf ball size hail being reported in Ellisville in the last 2 or 3 minutes. The wall cloud 44 and Bowles. And again, that was just a little while ago. So now we're seeing that move over into the area around Valley Park. And that's going to continue to push towards 270 here. So especially along 44, where that storm is nudging out, that's really where we're having the most intense situation developing right now, as that storm is nudging out. And when they nudge out like that, Gary, we know they can quickly spin up a tornado, and we need you in your basement and we're in your safe spot. If you're in one of the apartment buildings along 270 in that area, you just want to try to go to the lowest floor. Certainly get inside, away from windows and doors. Now, I'm going to stop this for just a split second. We're going to go in tight. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a track on this, kind of give you the, whoops, that's not what I want. We're going to put a track here and kind of take it off to the east and northeast. Here's where this is headed. So Kirkwood, roughly 627. Webster Groves, 631, in the next 10 minutes or so. These times may be a little bit off, but these are the towns in the place. It'll be into Tower Grove here within the next half hour, and then towards Slough High School by about 6:41 in Slough Hospital, and, getting towards Wright Forest Park in that area. So again, we need you in your safe place if you are impacted by this storm, specifically in the southern portions of St. Louis County and into the southern parts of the city of St. Louis, especially along and south of Highway 4064 and, more important, along Highway 44. And Gary, you've got some more information on this storm that's down in Jefferson County.
Yeah, and I want to look and make sure we're keeping an eye on our friends a little bit out of the city now that we caught up to that one as well, because that was our most recent tornado warning. But the first tornado warning that kind of spawned all this on the leading edge was in Hillsborough, and you can still see that defined. And while this is not a confirmed tornado, I wanted to give you a brief update because Pevely, you're not involved in this right now, but Festus, but this is going to impact 55 here in the short term. So what I want to do is put a track on this as well to give you an idea of where this is going, because over the last 15 minutes or so, 30 minutes, I'm going to put 30-minute track on it for you. It's still holding its structure on the leading edge of this line. So here, as we look from that area in Hillsborough to Pevely, I mean, I've got about a 10 to 12 minute window for you to at least get into your safe space here as we look among areas to the north. So as we continue to get some of these updates, I do want to go further north along this line and maybe take a look at not only that confirmed tornado and some of the most recent scans, but I also want to look at any other areas that may be impacted as well. And you can really start to see this with our most recent scan here. And I just tried to pull up some of the MoDOT cameras, but you can't see them too much just yet. The MoDOT cameras between 270 and 44 don't specifically have any great views of the sky or anything, but we are going to continue to look at that and bring you it briefly. But this is same for you in Kirkwood. Same for you anywhere on Big Bend from 44 in Big Bend as we work our way north of Sunset Hills. This is what's actively going on right now as we have this confirmed tornado here from 270 and 44. As we zoom this out just a little bit, once again, you can see within the last 15 minutes the circulation on that leading edge. And I'm going to circle this for you. And I have looked at some of the debris detector, and I don't see anything specifically picking up right now, but this is a confirmed tornado here as we look from Crestwood to Afton. These are the areas that out ahead of this as this slowly moves, and I'm just going to take it out just a little further ahead to give you just an update as we have from Crestwood at about 6:30. So you still have a few minutes here from Broadway at 6:39 or so. And Scott, this is obviously the one that we're going to look at the most because we know that it's confirmed, but there are multiple spin up and areas along this front. So this is going to be possible not only as it works its way into the city, but works its way onto the Metro East side as well.
Yeah, and we do have a new severe thunderstorm warning that does include much of St. Clair County down into Monroe County right now on the Illinois side and Randolph County, as well as much of the rest of St. Louis County. I want to show you real fast, if you guys can pull up camera 20. This is Kirkwood right now. The leading edge of this storm is coming into Kirkwood, and we've got the farmers market there. Again, you want to talk about a dark sky. I mean, and you've got some gusty winds with this, but you're also in the potential for that circulation to pass right over this area here over the course of the next 15 or 20 minutes. So you need to be in your safe place if you're along Manchester Road in Kirkwood, back through Sunset Hills. If you're, along Manchester Road, even into the city, into the Grove. You need to be in your safe place right now as this storm is rapidly moving off to the east and to the northeast. Got another picture here. This is going to take you up kind of back, looking from Forest Park back towards those thunderstorms. That's the storm that we're focused on right now that has the confirmed tornado. And again, That is the one that is moving over St. Louis County, kind of right along 44, maybe a little north of 44 at this point. But if you're in Sunset Hills, Kirkwood, Crestwood, you need to be in your safe place right now. Anywhere along Manchester Road, anywhere along Watson Road here in southwest St. Louis County, those are the areas where you need to be in your safe space at this point. These storms are going to continue to press into the metro area. Here's another vantage point looking back right now from Worldwide Technology Raceway towards the metro, and you can see these storms are coming in. Hail up to quarter size now being reported in Manchester. The rotation evident near Sunset Hills, but as we just mentioned, additional circulations trying to develop here in and around the Kirkwood area. So, anytime these storms start, nudging out a little bit, that's where we start ending up with that spin and the potential that you're going to see that. You got a couple of them. There's one right there close to Des Peres, one that's close to Sunset Hills, and they're going to be moving east. That's going to take it right in towards Kirkwood. So again, we need you in your safe place right now. Where is that safe place? It's on the lowest floor of whatever building you're in. You're putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And, a closet, a bathroom, interior hallways, those are the places to be in. Just kind of a quick little timing on this with this one circulation here as it's coming over Sunset Hills right now. Crestwood, just a few minutes, it'll be there. Shrewsbury, it's going to be there in a few minutes. So that's one circulation that we're seeing right now. Again, there's a couple. There's another one looks like it's here pretty close to Des Peres. I'm going to put a track on that, whether it's, and actually it just jumped off to the east, so maybe I'll just move that whole thing off to the east. But it doesn't look as impressive there. So there's the two areas that we're kind of concerned with here. Rock Hill, Brentwood, anywhere along Manchester Road, anywhere along Highway 44, these circulations are racing in now from the west, and I kind of want to go back and look at what it looks like in Kirkwood again, because I'm thinking it's really coming down.
I got to think that that's going to be, another area where you're really starting to see some of these circulations on the leading edge.
Yeah, so there's Kirkwood for you, and again, you see that drenching rain coming down right now. You can see some wind, perhaps. It's hard to tell at this point. It also looks like the camera just locked up a bit, which would indicate that perhaps we've lost some power in that area right now. So again, intense thunderstorms are moving across all of the area right now. The entire metro St. Louis area is pretty much under severe thunderstorm warnings right now. You have the tornado warning that is in effect for the southern half of St. Louis City, as well as South St. Louis County, kind of coming in from 270 now. It's getting inside Lindbergh, but then going south. And then you have the other tornado warning that stretches down into Jefferson County. That storm is about to move over the Mississippi in the next 10 or 15 minutes. And as it does so, it will create some additional problems. And now new tornado warning, Gary, for that storm that we're talking about in Jefferson County that's going to go east. So you've got it right there.
Okay, good. So that's the one we've been looking at specifically, and it's one that I want to make sure that, that we're not neglecting you. We want to make sure that we keep you posted as well. But the other one was a confirmed tornado, and now we have this area which has not weakened at all. So as this works its way across 55 and Pevely and Festus, what I want you to know is I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up here, because you have enough time here at 651 in Waterloo. You're in the perfect situation. You can get to your safe place, whether it's the interior room like a bathroom or your basement, away from windows. This is going to be just fine. You've got plenty of time here, so we're going to continue to monitor this one. This is where that tornado warning here goes until 7:15. So that's the most significant thing right now, is we have this active tornado warning. And I want to zoom out just a little bit and show you some of the other areas that are impacted downstream, so that we can at least, I want to loop this, and then I'm going to put this back on here as this entire area. I'm going to move this. And this means New Athens, this means Muscuda, this means Belleville, Millstadt. We're going to continue to look at this here, 731 in Muscuda and New Bait at 741. So I'm going to give you an extra heads up, because as this moves at about 30 to 35 miles an hour, this is where you're still going to have that opportunity to go inside and to be prepared for that. So go to the lowest level of your house or the interior, and you're going to have plenty of time. because we'll let you know when we're going to be able to come out, because we continue to stream and we're going to stay with you till 7:15. But as I mentioned, Waterloo 654, 702 Millstat. As I switch this to a different product so you can see specifically what's going on, I'll zoom back out and you can see this storm and how it is starting to maybe twist a little bit more. And I'm going to circle it for you where that specific rotation is, and I'm going to look at it. And it's right about here from Pevely into Festus. And that's what we're going to look at here. This does not involve Redbud on the Illinois side, but Waterloo, New Athens until 7:15. So, we still have multiple rounds on the leading edge of this particular cell that are involved in some of these. And also, of course, the one, that we're still looking at from Des Peres and Webster Groves. And this is that leading edge that we still have some of this for. As we still continue to get active severe thunderstorm warnings, the leading edge, as they work from 70 to 170, it has not made it to U City. It has not made it to Jennings. This is still an area where we have that potential for some of those areas along that boat out where there's spin. And you can see not only our cameras, but what Scott is zooming on specifically. And Scott, we're looking at several different things right now. Why don't you take us through some of the recent reports that you're seeing on there?
Okay, well, first of all, we've got numerous circulations along this line. So any one of them is capable of producing a tornado. And that's going to be the problem here going forward, in addition to the large hail and the strong winds. So basically, the entire metro area is under some sort of warning right now. A new severe thunderstorm warning just issued up to the north that will take you through northern portions of St. Charles County, northern portions of St. Louis County, into Madison, into Macoupin, and into Jersey counties. That's got hail with it, strong gusty winds possible as well. The tornado warning for this storm down to the south, you've got the tornado warning in southern portions of the metro area, really from South City along. The biggest threat, it looks like, is along and south of 40, although that tornado warning does include parts, most of western portions of St. Louis County or St. Louis City right now, including in towards Forest Park and almost into downtown. And then the tornado warning to the south. That circulation showing up down here right around Pevely. That's a pretty intense circulation that's showing up right now. That's right over the dirt track. That's right over Kenny Wallace's dirt track there. And that's moving towards the east. So Valmeyer into Waterloo, those are places where you need to be in your safe place right now. Kirkwood just reporting a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust as those storms are moving through. For the storm that is down in the Pevely area right now, let's take that over towards Valmeyer, Foster Pond, and Waterloo. You need to be in your safe place. That would include the Waterloo Country Club, Mystic Oak Golf Course, Camp Vandeventer, those areas down in Monroe County. That's where we're seeing, that circulation. We also, as we come back to the north, we're still finding a lot of nudging out of these lines. Anytime you get a bulge in these lines, that's the potential that you're going to spin something up. We know we have wind gusts in here of 50 to 60 miles per hour. We also know we're looking at a fair amount of hail. It would be hard. Gary, looking at this, I'd say there's a circulation potential here around Melville. There's another one that's just now working through the area of Maplewood and Richmond Heights, probably just south along 44, just coming into the city. So that means if you're in the Clifton Heights neighborhood, Southampton, or Tower Grove, you would get that. So again, this is our tornado warning that's in effect now for the St. Louis area and for where we are in particular in the city of St. Louis for this storm as it's moving off towards the east. So you've got the new warning that basically picks up where the other one is going to leave off and carries it eastbound into Madison County, into St. Clair County. Lots of circulations all along here, and they all are capable, each one of these circulations capable of producing a tornado. As we just said, we thought that one was right around Maplewood, and indeed that's where the Weather Service is noting that circulation too. The Ballwin Point Recreation Center, there's a picture with a wall of windows collapsed there at the Recreation Center. So we're getting wind damage out of West St. Louis County. I believe our producer Ashley just told me a few minutes ago that we do have some power outages across the area. Ameren reporting about 4,500 Ameren, Missouri customers without power, and about 1,500 of those customers in the Valley Park area. And again, that's where we saw those circulations. So tornado warning now extended, Gary. That tornado warning does include a good chunk of Madison County, St. Clair County, down into Monroe County as these storms are pressing east through eastern portions of St. Louis County and eastern portions of Jefferson County, right along the Mississippi rivers where most of those circulations are now moving towards, or at least getting close to, and every one of these little nudges along this line capable of producing a spin-up tornado. Go to your safe place. As these storms are moving in, as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and on the lowest floor, if you've got a basement, that's great. These storms, these spin-up possible tornadoes, Gary, they're going to hit quick, and then they'll be gone.
And they are, and those are the areas that we're highlighting, and I want to point out here. You see this, and I can really see it if I'll loop it for 15 minutes here in just a second, but I want to show you the specific areas from U-City all the way to Maplewood. First and foremost, too, as I zoom this and show you what's going on, I'll loop it for the last 15 minutes, and you're able to see just how they spin and the leading edge of this. And first and foremost, I want to let you know that as this storm continues to race closer to downtown where we are, we're going to do exactly the same thing that we ask you to do as well. We've got our plans in place that we're going to be able to broadcast and keep you safe all the way through 7:15. So I just want to let you know that right now. But I do want to note some of the leading edge of circulation, that there could be multiple areas. And it's not just that one, but I also don't want to forget our friends a little bit further south as well, as we continue to look at this, and this is something that you don't know if you're out and about. But this circulation in Pevely has continued, and there are a couple of other areas here near Maystown and Fultz that still may have an additional areas of circulation. So you're maybe looking at one tornado warning that is for a specific area like this right here, but you may also start to see some of these other areas, Scott, that there are so many little minor circulations that this could be one of those situations where, as we look down the road, that there are multiple spots where we've had some of these minor spin-up tornadoes along that, from Pevely, Festus, Imperial, Arnold. And so those are the areas over the next 15 to 20 minutes that are going to be impacted as we put this track on. And now we're starting to see upwards of 2,700 people without power. So once again, as we look at things here in Millstat here over the next few minutes, Redbud 706, Freeburg, New Athens, Muscuda 725, you have enough time that you can go inside. We have obviously seen that this line is not falling apart, and actively at the airport, Scott, there's a lot of lightning, there's a lot of very heavy rainfall at the very least, but we also have a confirmed tornado here, not only in the city, and that's what's got all your emergency sirens going off, things of that nature on your phone, and hopefully you have an active way of getting those warnings, and that lightning is pretty significant.
And heed them. We're here tracking these storms, but what we're finding is with all of these storms, and you look, really we have warnings now that stretch from north to south across much of our area. And that includes the warning that goes from St. Charles County over into Jersey and into Macoupin County through Madison County. Then you bump into that tornado warning as you go into the southern half of Madison County and into St. Clair County, down into Monroe County. Severe thunderstorm warnings all the way down towards Farmington and St. Genevieve and into Randolph County as well. So there's a lot going on here as you look at this. And you can see that storm as it's spinning and surging out here. I mean, the thing that's really concerning is that storm that's just surging out of Jefferson County and into Monroe County here, into that tornado warning area. Gotta say, you really should be along in your safe place here if you're in the vicinity of Valmeyer or Waterloo with this storm surging to the north. Now, we've also got a couple of those little nudges and notches here bowing out in and around South St. Louis County, southern parts of the city of St. Louis, and even going up to the north here into North St. Louis and Jennings over to Blackjack and heading off to the east. Those are areas where we have some concerns as well. And starting to get a fair number of reports of tree damage and power outages. Of course, you just mentioned the power outages from Ameren. This is honed in on the metro area right now as these storms are coming through. We'll pop on where we can look and see. You got a lot of little nubbies along here. Would think that the wind, it may not be circulation, but that wind down there towards Arnold would indicate that we have a possible 60 to 70 mile per hour wind there. Let's go down towards Pevely. This area that was down towards the Pevely area, law enforcement is now reporting numerous vehicles overturned. So that would be a possible tornado that went through the Pevely area. Again, Lambert's reporting a gust to about 62 miles per hour. So these are strong storms as they're moving through the metro area. They are capable of wind damage, large hail. You need to be in your safe place right now as these storms are moving through. And that's going to be in the lowest level of whatever building you're in. We're talking down, basement if you've got it, first floor if you don't, but put as many walls between you and the outside as possible with these storms racing off towards the east at about 35, 40 miles per hour, and a lot of bulging and bowing in these lines, which is conducive for quick spin-ups of tornadoes. That's why we have the tornado warnings that are in effect here for areas going right along the Mississippi River and then east into the Metro East, Gary.
Yeah, and we continue to see that. And the fact that we have seen this so often, and not only it has confirmed tornadoes, but we can give you that heads up, right? If you're downstream, we have plenty of time to give you a heads up, like Freeburg, New Athens. But because of the nature of these tornadoes and the way that either tornado warnings and either whether they're confirmed or unconfirmed, is the fact that they're able to spin up along this line so significantly. And one thing that I'm looking at when it comes to wind damage, and these are some of the brighter colors that I've seen toward and away from the radar. And you'll see that's on the higher end, and colors withstanding toward and away, that kind of gives us an opportunity to see what is twisting and the winds and where that is. But we've seen multiple areas like that. So I think, and we're often going to continue to monitor this, but the fact that we have maybe multiple smaller tornadoes within one tornado warned storm, I don't think that's out of the question whatsoever. So as we continue to look at this, I do want to update you on a storm that went through Kirkwood. We have a report of 60-mile-an-hour wind, but no damage. So I think that's something that we're going to look at area-wide with at least 60-mile-an-hour wind, but we do have some of that damage here that is confirmed. So we still have about another, half an hour to go, at least, when it comes to some of these storms, as we zoom into some of the ones that are right along, not only from the St. Louis area, which this specific area right now, if I'm going to circle one, based just on the radar, it is right here, right across 55, about to cross the river. That is probably the most significant area that we can see as it's about to go across 55 and cross the river and work its way onto the Metro East side. So these are a couple of the little small areas, and I know they don't look like much, and even as I loop them, they may not look like much. But what it is, it's toward and away from the radar, and it's that twisting, it's the leading edge of the storms. You're likely to see them from a distance, and then all of a sudden it rains very, very hard. So that may get wrapped up in the rain as well. So as we zoom out, there are a couple of little minor spots like this, and that's what we're having to deal with here as we continue to see a few of these. And it looks like, some of these areas still from Arnold, at least the radar scan showing, like I mentioned, some of the brighter areas from Millstadt. I think this is an area that I really want to look at specifically from Millstadt, because this is you probably have about 5 minutes or so, 6:58. So I think Millstadt, I would get to your interior area and safe space and make sure that you're heeding these warnings. That's the most important thing, because we can give you an all clear here shortly. But, Scott, as we have from top to bottom, it hasn't quite been as bad in North County near the airport when it comes to these little small areas of rotation. It's been mostly from the city south, it seems like. I don't know if that's changing here at the moment, but it's just something that note as this storm evolves over the next few minutes.
Yeah, it really looks like as we go south of St. Louis, you're talking about it. Monroe County in Illinois right now, a couple of circulations there that are looking extremely suspicious. One's very close to Valmeyer, the other very close to Maystown. And of course, this circulation that's here in the Maystown area, that may very well, as it's pushing over towards St. Joe, again, this is Monroe County in Illinois, and over towards Burkesville. You're talking the areas here along highway, looks like, let me see, Kaskaskia Road and G Road and KK Road. So there, that circulation now, it looks like it just shifted a little bit, but that's moving through, and it's right along Route 3. So these storms are advancing. Your circulations are going to be along Route 3. That's from a minute ago. So they're going to be moving into the southern half of St. Clair County and the southern part of this warning within the next 10 or 15 minutes. Back up and farther north, the storm's coming out of the city of St. Louis and moving in towards Granite City, towards Washington Park, towards Dupo and Cahokia Heights. You're already seeing it in Dupo right now. But again, and probably some big hail here over parts of South City into South County, moving off to the east. A lot of hail, a lot of winds with these. Circulations, potential tornado damage, certainly. We did have, I'm just kind of going through some of the wind gusts up at the airport just the last few minutes. Let's see, we've got hail and wind. So we've got a 58 knot wind gust, so that's about a 65, 67 mile per hour wind gust in North County. Expect to see those power outages increase in North St. Louis County. And tree down in Town and Country, tree on a house in Creve Coeur. Tree is blocking a lane on South Mason, south of Highway 64. That's close to being in the Ladue area. And then you just, the number and amount of large hail reports we have is just astounding. So it's really from Jersey County, about Grafton, down through, and let's just kind of go along here. Jersey County, from Grafton, south through St. Charles County, down through about the airports, down to about Creve Coeur, down to Melville, and then down 55. That's where the heaviest is. Now, once you get a little farther to the south, it's not quite as intense down into St. Genevieve and down into St. Francis County, but still some gusty winds and some large hail. The tornado warning, and this is now a confirmed tornado warning for this right along those lines where we've got those nubs sticking out here, Waterloo, Red Bud, heading over into St. Clair County. We've got a tornado debris signature, and let's see if we can get that. I'm going to pop this on, see if we can see it in here. What are they saying? Looks like it's that area right there. So this is that little area that we see there is co-located with where we've seen the wind. So that means that we do have the debris lofted into the air, and that's right along Highway 3. So that's where this was. This is just a few minutes ago. So it's as close to live as you're going to get. But that's right on Highway 3 there. And so that circulation, that debris is going to be pushing into Hecker here very quickly and then over towards New Athens. So those are the areas where we really need you in your safe place pronto. And your safe place in this scenario is going to be, in the basement if you've got it. If you don't have a basement, just go to the lowest floor of whatever building you're in, as many walls between you and the outside as possible. You're staying away from windows, you're staying away from doors. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, I don't have a basement, but I've got the cats and I'm in the bathroom and, we're safe. That's what you got to do. Hall closet, bathroom, interior room, lowest level. Make sure you're wearing your shoes just in case there is damage. You get a bunch of broken glass with this, and that could happen from a tornado. That could happen from the wind and the hail being blown around. That could cause problems. You want to make sure you have your shoes on and you're protecting your head. So we're going to get through this. These storms are moving through, but you need to be in your safe place right now in St. Clair County, far eastern portions of Monroe County in Illinois, and then going to the north back into Madison and St. Clair counties, just exiting across the river and across the Poplar Street Bridge right now, Gary.
Yeah, and before we continue to talk about those specific areas, I do want to update you if you're a little further west, because you may be still worried as well. Is there more storms on the way to my area? These areas have been removed from a tornado watch. So if you're in Wentzville, O'Fallon, New Melle, your threat is over tonight. You're also in Augusta, Washington, Wildwood, Pacific. Your threat is over tonight. Even though it is raining very heavily and you've had a rough day in Sullivan, your threat is over right now. So I wanted to update you as we get back to moving around on those specific storms here, because that's important as well. And I want you to know that the leading edge of this is where we're looking at the most significant area. And you can see that from Hecker. And this is the, if we can find that debris signature here, is just looping this the last few minutes. And that's where we have that area specifically between New Athens, Smithton, and Freeburg here. But once again, as we're looking at some of the velocity here, That's the most significant area. And I want to zoom back in on this because there still are a couple of areas right there from Waterloo, and this is that minor area, a couple of different spots that I want to look at right here and right here near Waterloo. Those are the leading edge, and we're going to see more of those here as we move forward the next several hours. And it's not out of the question here. Also, same for St. Louis City here as we look at some of our cameras here, and specifically where you even, as I mentioned earlier, it has not quite been as much to the north near Pontoon Beach, Granite City, but it's not out of the question here. But we still have probably the most significant in terms of the way the radar is showing up here from Millstadt and Freeburg. So Freeburg, New Athens, Mascoutah, you absolutely have a few minutes. And I'm thinking about within the next few minutes, I want you to go inside into your interior bathroom. That's a safe place. We often see times where there are tornadoes and even more significant tornadoes where the only thing left is the fact that you're in that bathroom. And so that's a safe place. If you don't have a basement, if you don't have a storm shelter or access to a storm shelter, those are things that are going to be just away from windows. That's one thing that you can look at. So from Waterloo to Millstadt, we still continue to monitor this with the most recent scans here. And it's just the fact that we have these leading edge little areas, even as we look into downtown specifically. And there's the most recent scan, and that's updating this one near probably right near Centerville here, Dutch Hollow, Fairview Heights, putting a track on this. Near Carbon, I think this is probably the most significant one, an area close to the city where we still see that rotation toward and away from the radar, the twisting of the winds. And for the last few minutes, we still are going to look at this as it moves off to the northeast at about 30 miles an hour. So you have plenty of time here in Fairview Heights at 7:04. And while it doesn't look like a lot of time, you absolutely have time. Calmly go to the basement and stay in your safe place. And just like I did with the counties west in Wentzville, O'Fallon, areas out west, we can give you an all clear, absolutely. But we have to have you take some of these warnings seriously right now because we have had confirmed tornadoes. We have had wind damage over 70 miles an hour in many spots. And so this is not just the time so often that we see, Scott, where we bring you tornado warnings, then there's nothing that materializes from it. We have credible evidence that not only they've been on the ground, they are on the ground, and they have caused damage throughout the area.
Yeah, large number of reports of hail. We're getting large numbers of reports of wind damage. Down on 55 near Pevely, reports of cars overturned. We're working to get more information on that at this hour. And we still have these couple of areas. There's one that just popped up here that is just southwest of Smithton that could be very well associated with some sort of debris being lofted into the air there. That debris signature has moved up to the north of Hecker right now. So we know that something has picked up debris and lofted into the air. Likely we've had at least a small tornado go through this area. But between New Athens and Freeburg right now and back towards Smithton, in that area, you need to be in your safe place. So you're heading to the lowest floor. You're putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And you're covering your head, you're wearing your shoes. So you can get into the basement, that's fine. If you don't have a basement, again, the first floor will, in 98% of cases, protect you. There's that tornado debris signature showing up there. And again, these are kind of suspicious up here as we look up towards Smithton area and just south of Smithton. So I want to kind of put the velocity on there. And so we can see our circulation in there around Hecker, and we can also see just southwest of Smithton, maybe there is something going on there right now. But again, getting a lot of nudging here, and a lot of bowing out. Trees are being reported down in Monroe County. A rotating funnel cloud has been reported just south of Bethalto by spotters there. So again, this area just north of Hecker, where you see this surge here kind of surging up, it's in that area along 156 just to that north that is where we're looking at that. And if we kind of just I'm going to include Smithton in this because it's an area that, maybe this does go over to Freeburg and Fayetteville and maybe stays north of New Athens. But these are the areas where you really need to be in your safe place right now over in Monroe and St. Clair County, really now into St. Clair County in Illinois. Let's go up to the north here and look at this storm as it's coming in to western portions of Madison County and western portions of St. Clair County. Again, this is just across the river. Keep in mind, still pouring in downtown St. Louis, still some gusty winds, maybe some hail, but it's along the leading edge, along this very leading edge where we have the potential for a spin up and the potential that we would see tornadoes there. You're looking towards the Gateway Arch right there, and we can't even see the 10 blocks down to the arch right now. It is raining so hard in downtown St. Louis, along with some gusty winds. But again, east of town, along that leading edge, as it's pushing in here, really all along here from Granite City down towards Canteen, Centerville, and then heading down west of Belleville, we're going to find this area sliding east. And it's in this area where you have the potential to see those tornadoes spin up. So just kind of putting a track on the whole line there, because anywhere along this line, something can spin up. Caseyville, Collinsville, Glen Carbon, Troy, eventually over towards Lebanon. So these are areas off to the east. Now, east of downtown St. Louis, St. Clair and Madison counties in Illinois, confirmed tornado here in St. Clair County, southern portions of St. Clair County, that storm that's just to the northwest of New Athens. We're going to back it up just a little bit here and broaden the perspective. There's still a tremendous amount of rain out to the west, but if you're in the western parts of the metro area, even though we're dealing with drenching rains and potentially here in West St. Louis County, western Jefferson County, and Franklin County, some flash flooding, that's certainly a possibility, but your threat of severe weather is over to the west of St. Louis. Our severe weather concerns are along this line and east, and that's going to take us in the next hour or so. It's going to take us over towards Bond County, over into Clinton County, over into Washington County, Illinois. So those are areas where now, especially if you have a mobile home or a manufactured home, those are the areas east of St. Louis where you still have some time. You don't have the warning yet, but you still have some time. So let's make some adjustments. If you have friends that are in the path of these storms and you haven't heard from them, go ahead and give them a text. Let them know that it's coming. A lot of times, if you text your friends who may be a couple of towns over and you just had it really bad, that lets them know that, hey, this is serious, and then they'll get to their safe place. All right. Now, we have not heard anything from City SC, I don't think, about tonight's game just yet, but I would suspect that we're going to be in some sort of delay. Hail's been reported across much of the area. Would you say, Ashley? Okay, you've got the full screen plans. Okay, so yeah, the shelter in place could be issued as long as there's lightning within 8 miles of the park. They kind of either delay, and I can't imagine with it pouring rain and drenching right now, because the match is supposed to start at 7:30, and you've got all the pregame warm-ups and getting everybody ready to go. So I'm not even sure they even opened up the doors here. The last that they put out was that, if you're at the stadium, seek shelter, and they do have a shelter policy there. Once the doors open, they have sheltering inside because the stadium, City Park, is a storm-ready facility, as is Busch Stadium, as is the Enterprise Center. All of our emergency managers have worked with the National Weather Service to try to find the safest places for people to be. And so I suspect, and I haven't heard anything officially from MLS, but you got to believe they're going to delay that just a little bit. So we're continuing the tornado warning, and it's Madison and St. Clair counties here. That continues, no longer in effect for the city of St. Louis, but it's still a drenching rain. And then we still have, I'm telling you, Gary, these cells down here towards Freeburg and just north of New Athens, they don't have a good look to them at this point.
And they've been this way for the amount of time. I think that's the most significant thing, and they've continued that. And obviously we have confirmed tornadoes, but you have the multiple areas where you have that spin, and you see that, and that's the most significant thing for me, is the fact that we continued. And I just tried to pull up the Belleville camera, and that's obviously not working right now. But we continue to have this issue where there are spots right now in Belleville and from Shiloh, and it's these little miniature areas of spin. And as I kind of take you to the north, and you can see this specifically as I put this into motion from Belleville past Fairview Heights and Caseyville. I do want to back this up a little bit because this has already picked up. So really from Fairview Heights, you have probably within about 5 minutes, and that's why I want you to go ahead and get into your safe space. If you haven't done so already, you can watch us, and we'll continue to stay with you. But O'Fallon, on the Illinois side, you have a little bit more time, 7:18. So you still have about 10 minutes or so. We will absolutely give you all clear, but there are a couple of these other areas that have not only shown a tornadic debris signature from a different radar products, but also continue to provide that spin up capability where you're seeing that from New Athens and Fayetteville. You still have a little bit of a look from the toward and away from the radar, and that's where that circulation, that spin continues. And so really from Fayetteville, as we zoom this out, and this is kind of the area that you were mentioning here, where we have multiple locations, as I kind of put, just a little bit of a pointer on some of these. And it's right here, it's right here, it's right here. There are multiple areas here over the last 15 minutes that still, as it works its way to Muscuda, is not really showing that it's weakening or providing that bow where we're starting to see that straight line wind. So at the very least, we have wind damage, we have 60-mile-an-hour wind, we also have these spin-up tornadoes. But the fact that we know that they're on the ground and they have occurred, we need you to get inside and take your safe space, because we can get you through it, but we gotta have you heed those warnings upstream, because we have enough warning. These are not racing at 70 miles an hour like some of the last storms are moving. They're about 35 to 40, and it's still fast, but it's enough time for you to stop what you're doing and take that inside, Scott. So, I think that's one of the things that we look at.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of reports coming in now of damage, especially here as we go down south of St. Louis. Storm Chaser reporting that there was a tornado on the ground around Hecker, which would line up very well with the debris signature that we saw. We've also had a report of a tractor trailer overturned 55 southbound at McNutt. And we've had reports of some debris on the north side in St. Clair County up along 270 and 70. Some debris being lofted in the air there. I believe that was on the Illinois side. So there's just a lot going on across the area with these storms. What you need to do is to be in your safe place right now, and that means inside, away from windows and doors. You're going to be on the lowest floor. If you've got a basement, that's great. If you don't have a basement, I think you're going to be fine if you're in the interior part of your home. Again, not a mobile home, not a manufactured home. You want to be in the interior section of a building that is literally bolted to the ground, and a lot of the mobile homes, even though they may be strapped down, they are not able to withstand some of what we see with these winds. Lambert's had a wind gust to 67 miles per hour. I would suspect that the power outage numbers are growing now as we continue to see all this hail and all this wind damage. But again, if you're in St. Clair County in particular, you need to be in your safe spot along this line of storms, especially around Freeburg, especially north of New Athens. That's going to be over towards Muscuda and Scott Air Force Base. The leading edge of those storms now pushing its way into the Belleville area right now. And I'm not sure which camera we're looking at right now. Do you know which camera that is? I can't tell. Ashley, do you know?
That is tough. I switched it just a minute ago, but they all look the same right now to some degree.
So
I do have the
camera
airport
20.
on. The airport is the one that I've got on right now. So it's
Oh, that almost looks like it's the
or
one
frozen.
that's, yeah, it looks like it's kind of frozen,
Yeah.
which that's going to happen when we have that. It might be 100 above the park
Yeah.
from a few minutes ago. But you've got these areas of thunderstorms and this whole line really, and we've got a new tornado warning that just came in here. So we've got a tornado warning now for Jersey, Macoupin, and up into Madison County, Illinois. So this is for this area here along the line, the leading edge, where we're starting to see it bowing out and spinning up. So let's put a track on that, Gary, and try to give you as much heads up as possible. Yeah. And this, it does include the Bethalto area. Eventually it's going to include Gillespie, Staunton, Illinois, Mount Olive, Honey Point. So this is going to take us really through at least the next 30 or 35 minutes over the next 15 minutes. So tornado warning and a new tornado warning. As soon as we get that one taken care of, we have yet another one that's just now in. Let's just broaden out this picture here because you need to see all of this. So with the storm that's moving across St. Clair County, Now a new tornado warning has been issued essentially for all of Clinton County and all of, all of Clinton County, all of Washington County, and a portion of St. Clair, it looks like St. Clair County and Randolph County. So kind of the leading edge, again, of this line. And this is the one where we've really seen, you step it back, you can see how these storms might be spinning a little bit. This is really where we've watched these things push in and nudge. You see all those bulging, and the bulging of the line is a good indicator of rotation. We have had some debris signatures. It's getting a little sloppy and a little messy now, so it's hard to pick that out. We flip it over into the wind mode of that, and well, it's not going there. So I think our computers are starting to get a little overworked, Gary.
That's okay. We're going to look at a couple of, this is City SC. They're sheltering in place. So the people that were there, they're taking it very seriously and heeding the warnings, which is very good to see for the people that were able to attend. And so, that's something that we're hoping that you're able to safely do in your area as well. So as we look at this side specifically, the new tornado warning that's in place, Breeze, Carlisle, you are impacted as well. I went out and took it to Centralia, even though you're not technically involved in this right now, because we want to give you the most heads up possible at this point, because we obviously have had multiple confirmed tornadoes. And these tornado warnings are not just the radar indicated type that we so often see, but there are multiple, not only areas of damage, but multiple tornadoes and spin-ups along the leading edge of the storm system. So, for the next several hours, so as I erase this and put this back on here for you with the time for just a minute, what I want to look at here is as this moves at about 35 miles an hour in Breeze and Carlisle, this is what you're able to see. Because from New Baden, 7:27, Carlisle, 8 o'clock. So I'm giving you a nice 45-minute heads up. And even if it gets there sooner, you are prepared. Make sure you charge your phones, be prepared for this. But, we'll let you know when there's an all clear. But Carlisle at 8 o'clock, and so as we look at this, the leading edge specifically, it's the twisting on the leading edge that I want to zoom in here a little bit more and show you some of these specific areas that are impacted, because it's right here near just south of Freeburg. And this is an area where, we've had damage right here specifically. It's these little leading edge where you see the green and red, those little nudges. Even as we look a little further close to the O'Fallon, Illinois side, Fairview Heights right here. And it's these areas specifically that as they move off to the northeast at about 40 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour or so, that's when you're seeing multiple tornadoes within, or possible within, a tornado warned storm. So, depending on what part of the area that this is moving to the northeast, and I've queued up the Belleville camera there that was frozen for a while but is back online, and you can see that the winds are starting to pick up. We've seen 60-mile-an-hour wind that has moved through, and it's still a little gusty behind it. But as we continue to have these tornado-warned storms, the further you are ahead of this, even in Troy right now, even in New Baden, even in Breeze, you have that opportunity to get inside your safe space, even if you don't have a basement. And so we're going to let you know the all clear as the storm continues to push away. But Scott, it's a matter of taking these warnings seriously as opposed to going outside and looking for them. Because at this point, honestly, unless you're way ahead of them, and look at the significant wind gusting around right now in Edwardsville, we've had multiple areas of damage as well that we can show you behind this storm. And so these things have occurred already. So, Scott, I think that's one of these things. And this is from Ballwin. This is Elizabeth share. This is some of the wind damage behind this. And this didn't even have to do with the tornado specifically, but this was at the community center here. So we've seen multiple areas where the wind has impacted. So I want you to take this seriously, as we've seen, at the very least, wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour, Scott.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen that rotation in the storms. We know we had something on the ground down in parts of St. Clair County earlier because we had a debris signature, so you can confirm a tornado by the radar. Nobody even has to see it. We know because when the debris gets lofted, we can tell it's not raindrops in the clouds. It's more, leaves and pieces of shrubs and whatever. So let me tell you, all right, there's a large number of folks that really need to be in your safe place right now. And this is going really, we're starting up north and going south. If you're in this area of southeastern Jersey County up into Macoupin County, going south into Madison County, particularly central and eastern portions of Madison County, once those storms start, it's right along that leading edge where there would be a tornado if there's going to be a tornado. Now, having said that, right behind that, there's still going to be potentially strong winds and the hail. So again, the tornado threat is right at the leading edge of these storms. So Madison County, that then extends over into Bond County. It includes Greenville, and it extends up into southern portions of Macoupin County and southern portions of Montgomery County. So those are the areas we're kind of tracking there. And you see just a little different perspective as we kind of switch the radar sites there. The circulation looks like it's somewhere around Bethalto right now, at least one of them. And then there's another that looks like it's around Hamel. Now, as we come back down through Madison County, we're going down from Madison County into St. Clair County. And again, along the leading edge of this, that's where we have your potential for a spin-up tornado. That's now starting to stretch here into Washington County, Illinois. That's over towards Lively Grove. This is going to push right along the Kaskaskia River here as you work your way into Clinton and Washington County. And anywhere along this line of thunderstorms, the potential is there that you're going to be able to spin something up as we and spin into a quick tornado as we go through time. You also have on that leading edge down here across parts of Randolph County a tornado warning that is in northeastern portions of Randolph County. The rest of Randolph County still under the severe thunderstorm warning. Now, as you go back to the west, it's more of a flood thing. You've got the flash flood warning into West St. Louis County, down along 44, stretching all the way from about 270 all the way down towards Sullivan. So again, a lot of low water crossings in those areas southwest of St. Louis in the hilly terrain. You don't want to be driving into those. You can't see well. There's still rain in this area. We put on the actual radar. There's still some decent rain back there, and it will continue to fall for the next hour or so. But your threat of severe weather, really the threat of severe weather now is pretty much over. And I'm going to put this out just a little bit broader. We'll go down the line here. If you're in Carrollton, yes, it's raining. Your threat of severe weather is over. Alton, still some gusty winds, some heavy rain into the city of St. Louis. Still heavy rain, still gusty winds, but in going right on down 55 until you get north of the St. Genevieve exit. West of there, yes, we still have some rain, and there's even some more scattered showers and storms out here over mid-Missouri right along the front. But your severe weather threat is over to the west. It's to the east, especially if you live in a mobile home or in a manufactured home. We need you to get to more substantial shelter and get to a building, a well-built building. And it can be down the street. You got time here. If you're over in Carlisle or in Nashville, you've got time to run down the street to the corner store and get in their cooler, to get into their bathrooms in the shelter. You need some good shelter to be in at this point. We're on the lowest floor. If that's a basement, fine. If not, first floor is going to be perfect. You're putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and we're staying away from windows and doors. So the hall closet, the bathroom that's in the center of the house, those are great spots to be, but stay away from windows and doors. Let these storms go through. If you're going to see a tornado, it's going to be the first 5 to 10 minutes of the storm moving in, and then after that, gusty winds, heavy rain, and hail. So Gary, a lot going on. Again, this line has produced damage and has caused some extensive power outages.
And it's still the storm to the south that really has my attention more than anything. And obviously there are multiple tornado warnings, but it's this area right near Muscuda. And I want to just point this out because of just the way that it's starting to show up with its signature on radar. And I'm going to point this out not only by showing you this product, but a couple of other ones as well. So from Muscuda right across 64 near Albers, Breeze. If I'm in Breeze or Carlisle right now, I'd at least think about going and really taking it seriously at this point, just because the way that this storm continues with each scan as it moves off to the east to hold together, I want to look at this velocity product. And it really has to do with the fact that we still see this rotation along the leading edge here from Fayetteville. And we've seen kind of some stronger signs that this is holding together. And as Scott has mentioned, we look at this different radar product to show if there's debris that's thrown up. that's getting murked around a little bit. But the fact that the wind is blowing, and also if you pull up Cam 20 for me, because just to show you what it looks like here at the moment as well, behind this and just involved in this, because I mean the wind is significant here in Edwardsville. It's raining very hard, and we continue to see that at the very least. So with a lot of lightning, gusts over 60 miles an hour, just guaranteed. Then you start to add the tornadic wind threat and damage threat, which we have already seen. And so that's why I want to look at this here over the next 15 minutes. So from Albers, Breeze, Carlisle, you have absolutely enough time. It's obviously not raining in your area. And just as Scott has mentioned, if you don't have a basement or some place to go inside, not just from a manufactured home standpoint, but if you have a neighbor's house that you feel like it's a little safer, they have a better basement than you do or a better spot, you absolutely have enough time to walk next door a couple of houses down the road and stay safe with them. We'll let you know when the all clear is. But once again, here from Mascouda, this area that's about to cross 64, that's an area that we want to look at for the potential for some of these spin-up tornadoes that we have either confirmed or still see the possibility of. So as we look ahead here over the next few hours, we still will be able to give you the all clear, but it's the most significant things as we move across 64 here from Mascouda, Albers, Breeze, and Carlisle. I do want to put a tracker on this for you here as this races off, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit more here and slow it down. So from these areas specifically that have worked their way across the interstate, I'm going to just go ahead and just get ahead of things and maybe just give you an extra heads up here, because I do expect that once again on track for Carlisle at about 7:45. So we have some time to be able to get inside that safe place here from Brookside, Centralia, 8 o'clock. So this is going to be with us here as we continue to have updates to this. Like I mentioned, it's the spin-up tornadoes and the possibility of that spin-up tornado along the leading edge of this line. Once that moves through your area, you're all clear. It's still going to be a loud thunderstorm. It's still going to be heavy rain. But it's one thing that we're still going to be actively looking at here as we have multiple tornado warnings that have not only we've seen them on radar, as we show you so often, but they have been confirmed with damage. So we really want you to take these warnings seriously, Scott.
Yeah, and the thing is it's quick. It happens quickly. It's right on the leading edge of this line of storms. Literally on the leading edge where parts of the storms are surging out. And when they surge out like that, it is sucking in the air and it's twisting it at the same time. So you get that quick spin up. And the storms themselves, some of them are actually rotating. So you tighten up that circulation and bam, you got a tornado. It's quick hitting, doesn't seem to last very long. In fact, we haven't seen, as I'm looking here on the what we try to do when we look for the debris signatures, I'm not seeing anything that's showing up as a true debris signature at this point. So that in and of itself is good, but we still have the circulations there and we can see that on the radar screen. Now, if you are mostly west of the Mississippi River, with the exception of the areas around Chester and down towards Perryville and Fredericktown, you folks still have some stronger storms. The warning is up, it looks like, into Randolph County and now into Perry County in Illinois, but not farther south just yet. But if you're west of the Mississippi going north of Chester and up into the metro St. Louis area, and then going up even west of the Illinois River, up in Calhoun County, you're clear. You've still got some gusty breezes, you've still got the heavy rain, but it is along the leading edge of these storms where we're seeing those nudges and those bulges, and that is why we have the tornado warnings. So again, Macoupin County, southern portions of Montgomery County, into Bond County. Storms aren't into Bond County yet. You've got time in Greenville. You've got time over in Carlisle. They're just now coming in to western portions of Clinton County at this point, especially down towards Oakville and Damiansville, and then heading west of Nashville, down towards Oakdale and down into the Lively Grove area. Pretty sure you're getting some hail in and around Lively Grove right now. And again, wherever we've got something bulging out here, the potential that we're going to have some spin. And that includes in this area up around Hamel, Illinois, in eastern portions of Madison County, and down, approaching Highland. You're going to be into it in the next few minutes. What do you want to do? Well, first of all, we want you to be safe. These are not long track tornadoes. They're quick hitting. So whatever we see, it hits. It may stay on the ground for a little bit, and then it's gone. But we have had reports of some significant damage across the area. And with that in mind, we want you to be in your safe place. So where is that safe place? You're going to the lowest floor of whatever building you're on. It could be the basement if you've got that. If you don't have a basement, first floor is fine. You're just going to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And you are going to stay away from those windows and doors. So, bathrooms, hallways, the closet in the hallway, those are all good places to be. Still getting a lot of reports of trees down, and with that, we have over 10,000 customers from Ameren and Jefferson County that are without power, and in St. Louis County, we're now up to 17,500 plus. In the city, about 684 customers. St. Francis County is coming in with 803 customers without power. So we do know there's power outages. Hopefully your phones are charged, and we can keep you updated on 5 on Your Side on the KSDK app. We're streaming there as well through this entire ordeal.
Well, that's the best way, especially if we tell you to go to the basement, right? You want to know when we tell you to go all clear. And so, absolutely, we'll stay on and we will continue. And it's that one specifically near Hamel, Illinois that I mentioned that you also were talking about. And that's one we want to look at and not neglect, because it still looks like one of those specific signatures where even with the most recent updates, it's that brief tornado possible that we've mentioned here. So even with the latest scan, it still shows that you see some of these brighter shades of red and lighter shades of green. And as that happens, that's the twisting of the wind, and that's where we're seeing those little couplets that we often mention along the leading edge of these storms. So as we continue to look at this tornado warning, which is in place, I do want to look at the specific areas, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more because some of the recent scans are kind of showing something specific here near Kaufman. And, this is where it is right here. Just as we mentioned, this area, this discolored area, if we're going to pick out a point, and, just as I put a track on this throughout the rest of not only the tornado warned storm, I try to do it out ahead of it just because the radar scan typically is a little older, just because the way, technology is. And it's not by much, but I want to give you that extra heads up. Because from Greenville at 750, Smithborough at 756, these are areas that are going to be impacted by this potential spin-up tornado. And we have multiple areas like this all the way from now through about 8 o'clock. So I think that for the next, we're going to be able to give you an all clear in many spots. In fact, I can go ahead and do that. I want to switch back to that here in a brief moment here as we can start to knock off a few more areas that are in the all clear. And that means Festus. I know you've had kind of a rough last couple of hours. That means red bud on the Illinois side. If you have been sheltering in place in Millstadt, you're safe to come out now and go upstairs and continue to watch us as we give you an update. It's just raining. Same for Kirkwood, same for Crevecoeur, same for O'Fallon. It doesn't matter where you are specifically, really anywhere from 270 and west, you're safe. And we're almost to the point where we can start to say at the river and west is that way. But as I mentioned, the leading edge of some of those are still producing some smaller hail, but it's transitioned into more of that wind gust threat now and some spin-up tornadoes. And maybe some good news looking at this cell in Mascoutah, Scott, and you can see I can ask you if you agree, but the fact that we don't have that kind of that bulk in between where we didn't see that radar return, it's starting to flatten out a little bit. And that may be signs that we can start to get this thing into a 60-plus mile-an-hour wind gust threat instead of the rotation here at the initial threat of the surface there.
Yeah, and the tornado warning actually has been discontinued in that area. It's been dropped. So there's no longer a tornado threat in Mascoutah. You've already had your stronger winds, but now that tornado warning is right along it's over on the Clinton County line and then east from there. And then it stretches down along the leading edge of that line of thunderstorms across Washington County and Missouri. Severe thunderstorm warning does continue down into Randolph County. That does include the Chester area where you're getting quite a bit of a mess right now. Also now a new tornado warning into Perry County in Missouri. And that is for the area here right along and just west of Perryville. We're going to pop on the storm relative velocity. Now we switched our radar sites here. So the radar site now is coming out of Paducah. And so that gives us kind of a different perspective on where these circulations are. And again, we're looking at, this area here that's northeast of Perryville. There's one close to Perryville and then one down to the southwest. But again, it's the same sort of thing. It is all along that leading edge of these thunderstorms. So if you're in the Perry County area in Missouri, especially in that area from Perryville heading over to the east, you'll want to be in your safe place right now. Some of the specific locations for that would be, and mainly off to the east of Perryville. It looks like the storm, the leading edge of that is probably right over Perryville now, so it's going to be off to the east. But heading over towards Longtown and Farrar and Dry Hull Hill, and that's the area that we're looking at right now. Let's go up to the north and kind of look back where you were looking just a few minutes ago, Gary. We'll take this back up. And, we still have tornado warnings all along the entire line here. Basically, it's just west of 55 up here into Macoupin County and over to the Montgomery County line along 55. So kind of right there around Litchfield. And then you're extending it down as you go into the southern portions of Montgomery County in Illinois, all of Bond County, the eastern portions of Madison County, all of Clinton County, and down into the central and eastern portions of Washington County. If you're in the Nashville area, you got some big hail that's coming in. We'll put this back on the mode here that lets us see how the winds are. Looks like there's a little bit of rotation there. And now we're looking from the Evansville radar, so we get a different look at it. But you're looking at some rotation there just to the northwest of Nashville, not too far from Covington. This is going to be about 10 miles east of the rest stop along 64. And there's another circulation that looks like here that is right along 64 in the Kaskaskia River. So again, they're not overly big circulations, which would be typical because in this case, you're getting quick spin-ups that would impact these areas very quickly. And you've got the potential for some spin-up tornadoes. And you were just talking about it a few minutes ago here in that area around Alhambra. Kind of got that circulation from Kaufman to Alhambra. I'm sure Mrs. Glassmaker is in her safe place right now as this moves out along Highway 140 here, going out of Alhambra off to the east. So again, a circulation there. Can't confirm that that's a tornado, but the circulation is there and you need to be in your safe place. And again, Gary, these are quick hitting tornadoes. They're not huge, but they still pack a punch.
Absolutely, and we've already seen, obviously reports of vehicles down. There's damage. There are many spots where you've either seen straight line wind damage or damage from the tornado itself. So they're absolutely something that we have to pay attention to. And so, as you mentioned, those two specific areas on the Illinois side, we still have to look at them. And although they are brief, we can at least at this point give you not only a heads up, but also we can let you know when you're safe as well. So it's just as quick as that. So as long as you continue to follow us, we'll follow from north to south all the way to Perry County, where we have also another tornado warning as well. And so here's the latest scan that you just see, and you can see where it started to weaken. You don't see that couplet here from Olive to New Douglas quite as much. That doesn't mean that's not an area that I don't want you to go inside still. But maybe it's signs that it's weakening. And we're going to have to watch how this storm evolution here continues as we now have entered sunset, right? So that's one of the other things that we have to think about. And I think that's going to maybe add a benefit to us as it enters less favorable environments, and we have the sunset now as this storm continues to work its way to the south. As I mentioned here, we still have areas that are still starting to see at least a couple of areas of rotation along where that tornado warning is. I do want to zoom a little bit further south, as Scott has so often mentioned, where we have that different radar product out of Paducah. It's a different radar site. It's a little closer, gives us a better idea. And so that's why you're seeing some of the mix of colors here. I just want to explain that here. But you see that from Rockwood into Perryville as well. And specifically here along 55. And it seems to be a common theme along some of the major interstates as these have moved from north to south. Or from north to south, it has been that same line where we've had multiple areas of rotation as it's continued to move along this. But as you show you the radar, once again, Breeze in Carlisle, I still want you to be prepared for some stronger wind gusts. But now Belleville, even looking at the camera here, winds have settled down. It's still likely storming, but you're done with the severe weather threat. So if you have been sheltering in place, even in Mascoutah, Belleville, Freeburg, New Athens, you can go back upstairs. It's still going to be raining. There's still maybe some loud storms, but there still are multiple areas where we're still impacted by potential tornadoes here over the next half hour, Scott.
Yeah, and we're continuing to monitor these storms as they do show some signs of weakening. That's the good thing as they're pushing off to the east. And you talked about this a little bit, Gary. You know, we're past sunset now. They're also kind of jumping out ahead, well ahead of the front. So it's along and right along that front, which is still back to our west, where you get all the ingredients lining up just so to create this kind of severe weather scenario. And so what we're seeing right now is that these storms are tending to outrun that a little bit. They still got a little bit of juice to work with, but there is an overall bit of a weakening trend we're starting to see right now. So that's kind of a good news thing. We still have the tornado warnings off to the east of St. Louis right now, into Clinton County, over into Washington County, Illinois. I'm going to try to get you this camera here in just a second from over in O'Fallon. And let's see if I can pop this on for you. Let's see if that'll play out for me, because you're looking at it there. That's Belleville. Let's see if it'll play out. And we're going to put it here, and we're going to put that there. And let's see, does it go? And Gary, it's not wanting.
Well, that's what happens when we want it to go. But
well, I'll try
you know,
it another way and see. I can,
all right.
you know, I can fight with the computers all day long.
Yeah, that's what
but
we
it
do.
doesn't. There you go. So you can see traffic on 64 here. You're looking towards the east from Greenmount Road. You can tell that we still have a lot of lightning off to the east. There are still tornado warnings east of this location right now, into Clinton County, into Bond County. But we are starting to see things diminish a little bit across the area in terms of intensity. We're still concerned about the potential for hail and that tornado, especially here where there's a little bit, you know, you're nudging out these storms towards New Minden and in towards Nashville. So those are areas where we are still concerned that there's a potential we could see a brief spin up. And that tornado warning is continuing there. The tornado warning is continuing here in Clinton County, but you can tell these storms have lost a lot of their punch up into Clinton County now compared to what they were looking at just a little bit earlier. So if you're in Washington County along and south of 64, or let's say along and south of 177, out of Oakville to New Minden to Irvington, you want to be in your safe place in those areas right now as these storms track on to the east. Still, I'd be in the safe place if I'm in Clinton County just to be on the safe side. It also looks like these storms over eastern portions of Madison County, as they're spreading in towards Bond County, are starting to weaken a little bit in intensity. Let's keep our fingers crossed that that trend keeps going, but they're still strong enough that we have potentially some damaging winds with those storms. And then up towards Gillespie and heading towards Litchfield, still have that tornado warning there. Now, east of there, it is a severe thunderstorm warning across much of the rest of Montgomery County as we watch those storms kind of slide to the east. And we kind of we keep spinning around and checking different radar sites, because every time we go to a different radar site, this is the National Weather Service out of Lincoln, it gives us a little bit of a different perspective of the storm. So then we switch it back over and we get back into the St. Louis site, and you can see that's just a little bit different on the perspective that we get from the storm. That helps us out. National Weather Service has canceled the tornado watch for Calhoun, Iron, Jefferson, Reynolds, St. Charles, St. Louis counties, Washington County, and the city of St. Louis. That's Missouri and west with the exception of Calhoun County. Okay, so your threat's totally over there. We still have the flash flood warning for Jefferson County, St. Louis County. That's still in effect. We're still draining water. Don't drive through flooded roads, please don't. Emergency management is in Hecker doing damage assessment. Several trees have been reported down. Some outbuildings have been destroyed there. That's from about a half an hour, 45 minutes ago or so. As I'm just working up the list here, we've got a lot of reports coming out of West St. Louis and Southwest St. Louis County where there's some trees down and some tree limbs down. You can send your storm damage photos to newstips@ksdk.com. And we'd love to see them, but only when it's safe to do so. And Gary, you're looking at some of these peak wind gusts.
Yeah, we obviously had the one in Rolla at 97 miles an hour earlier, but just to kind of look at some of the ones, and as we show you what's going on, and I mentioned the areas in the all clear, 67 on Lambert, there's no doubt about that, but we had multiple reports of 60 plus miles an hour. As the storm continues to push off to the east, and you still have a few areas on the Illinois side under a tornado warning, it is weakening, as Scott has mentioned, and St. Louis, you were out of the tornado watch, as I mentioned, pretty much everywhere on the Missouri side as I start from north to south. So if you've been sheltering in place or you've been worried in Farmington, Perryville's still worried about that, but if you're west, you're starting to be on the okay side. 55 anywhere north, Festus, Cedar Hill, Wildwood, it's still significantly raining, but it's starting to at least quit closer to Washington. And so we're getting there. It's slowly but surely. The other thing I want to look at here is the fact that we still have these storms that are moving off to the east. And those are the areas that we're still going to be impacted, like Perryville, as I mentioned. And that's what I want to zoom in on because those are still a couple of areas that are impacted by active tornado warnings, which, of course, we're going to stay with you until those tornado warnings are over. But like I mentioned here, from Carlisle to Breeze, and I want to look at this from a velocity standpoint perspective as well. Here's what we're going to look at here. I want to look at some of these specific areas. And you notice, if you've been following along with us on a pretty consistent basis, where these are just not quite as strong. You know, there may be this area specifically over the last 15 minutes in New Douglas and Hamel, Illinois. But watch as I loop this over the last 45 minutes even. And you can see where we've had maybe some multiple areas of rotation, and it's kind of flattened out. And that has to really do with, I think, how the storm is evolving here at this point. And while we're starting to see this, look over the last, I'm going to loop this for the last hour or so. And what you can see as we look at some of these active tornado warnings, and what I want you to see here as I let this play, watch how we have areas out ahead of it, and there's still some wrinkles and maybe little fingers. And that's where we had those spin-up tornadoes and those brief tornadoes, which are still actively warned for at this time. But notice how it's starting to turn into more of that bow shape where you don't, it's more smooth out ahead of it. And Scott, this is what we look for. And we thought maybe we would get a little sooner even when we had it out on the Missouri side. And then as soon as it got closer to the city, we started to see that rotation. And that's why we've had multiple tornado warnings, and we still do. But at this moment, that sign is telling us that this is turning away from the tornado threat and just into more of a wind damage threat, where we still need to take it seriously, but maybe we're not going to see as many, or if at all, those brief spin-up tornadoes downstream.
Yeah, and we do have some storm footage from down in the Waterloo area here in a few minutes. That area to the south of St. Louis, that to me looks like, that would be a confirmed tornado, or it certainly does appear to be that, because you can see the circulation of the dust being picked up there along the ground, and you've got the lowering of the cloud. Not all the time do you get the funnel stretching all the way from the ground. Sometimes in between the ground where you see it and where it's lifting debris, you sometimes don't actually get a full funnel, but that certainly would look like it, and it would align well with the circulation that we were looking at that time. And again, when it's safe to do so, we love to see your videos, your pictures, but we don't want you out in the middle of the storms when it's not safe, because we want you to stay safe. We want everybody to stay safe. And so, again, you can share your photos with us at newstips@ksdk.com. We have crews that are out across much of the area. I do want to update you on this storm here and the warning that's in effect for Clinton County and down into Washington County in Illinois. This is now an observed tornado. So they are seeing it observed. And so really from about Nashville to Covington up to Breeze, and then going up to the north from there, going over towards Carlisle. So this is going to impact Carlisle Lake. And it's certainly, I wouldn't think too many people would be out on Carlisle Lake at this point, now that it's, after dark. But while it was fine to be out there for a good time earlier today, not so much now, and we would like you all to be in your safe place. I would think New Minden over to Irvington, and then in this area from Nashville over towards Richview and Ashley, the more likely areas perhaps to see something drop out of the sky very quickly. Just a few minutes ago, over in Cahokia Heights, a 56-mile-per-hour wind gust reported from there. I think you might have mentioned that, Gary. Yeah. We've had a lot of 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. These storms here that are now bowing out kind of in Washington County and into Clinton County, while the overall northern part of the line is tending towards weakening a little bit, we still have the tornado warnings for a little bit longer here. I think we're set to go until 8 o'clock on these tornado warnings from Montgomery County down into Bond County, down into Clinton and Washington counties. Now, I think once we get past that, we may end up going to severe thunderstorm warnings as as we see adjustments happen there. Emergency managers over here in north of Nashville, Washington County, reported a tornado just north of Nashville a few minutes ago. So let's just kind of look at that and see. You can see there's a little bit there. I'm going to move this over. That's the St. Louis radar. Let's get a different vantage point. Well, it's not
I
much.
know, it's,
Yeah,
I try to do the same thing. It's tough.
We're in our spot there where you're starting to get where you've really where you're really looking for rotation, but it's hard to find it. And it looks like it's dropped off considerably. Let's just take this back a little bit and see. Well, there we had it, yeah, and then it kind of fizzled out on us. So yeah, I think it probably was there 15 minutes ago. But again, you want to be in your safe place in these areas off to the east of St. Louis, where we still continue with our tornado warnings for a bit longer. West of St. Louis, west of the Illinois River, west of the Mississippi River, with the exception of Perry County in Missouri and points on to the south, your threat of severe weather is over. Okay, the back edge of the rain starting to push in now, at least the steadier rain, starting to push in towards Wentzville, starting to push in towards Washington. There will be a lot of cleanup in some of these areas back to the west. The sun's even come out in some of those spots, Gary. At the same time, we're still tracking these potentially tornado-producing quick spin-up storms east of town, and they're continuing to move towards the Interstate 57 corridor. The important thing is that they are moving into an environment that's not as conducive for severe weather. So we're hoping that trend will continue over the course of the next hour or so.
Right, and it's been interesting to see how some of these storms have evolved, right? We've started off with hail being the main threat, and then one tornado, which it really created a lot of issues. But early on, the hail, especially during the daylight hours where we had that significant heat, we had a lot of reports of golf ball-sized hail. If you want to share some of these videos, we have a couple of them that we'll show you here as we continue to monitor the velocity here. But I do want to get to those here in a little bit. But one thing that we'll look at here specifically from Nashville is the fact that we have that confirmed tornado still. And it is north of Nashville, Richview and 64. And so that's, like you mentioned, once you get away from that radar specifically, this is the area right now. So as we continue to look, here's some of the specific, not only low clouds, but you can see this wall cloud, this rotation here. This is from Stephanie. Just an example of some of the video and pictures that we've seen. And you can see this entire, not only low part of the cloud, but the entire rotation that goes up. And that is what we have seen on the leading edge as we show you some of this video. And so this is, obviously, we appreciate you sharing some of these videos from your safe place before you get in there. But here's where some of the wind, this was in Sullivan, and this is one of the most significantly impacted areas by the wind that we had seen throughout the entire area, where we had gusts even downstream of 97 miles an hour. So there's significant damage. Obviously, that tree still moving around at a pretty good pace. But Travis Cummings will be there for you with a live report here coming up tonight at 10. But the main story for us as we continue to monitor the severe weather threats is the fact that the one area that has specifically been impacted by a tornado right now, and even as I had just mentioned minutes ago with some of the recent radar scans, we were hoping the fact that we started to see that maybe bow out a little bit more, and we just don't have that. And what I want you to look is, we kind of have these little areas in here. That's where we have those spin up, and we just showed you on that video where we have that rotation. That is what happens at maybe a larger scale, and obviously we have that confirmed tornado. We have that at a larger scale. That's where we have that brief spin-up tornado. It moves out, and then we continue to move on, and it transitions to rain. But Scott, it seems as though we're still not done with that on the Illinois side with that just confirmed tornado, but still multiple areas which it still won't flatten out.
Yeah, it will not. And now we've got new severe thunderstorm warnings extended out ahead of this line. It does look like, though, that we've seen some pretty tight rotations, and that trend has seemingly diminished somewhat. So the new warnings that are coming out now in advance of this line, particularly from Clinton County down through Washington County, and then down into Perry County, Illinois, and then pushing towards the Interstate 57 corridor. We now have a new severe thunderstorm warning that will take us over into Marion County, Illinois, and over into Jefferson County, Illinois. So Salem, Mount Vernon, obviously in this area here. I'm kind of zoom in. So those areas, yes, there still could be a quick spin up of a tornado, but it sure seems like at this point that we're looking more at the strong winds and the hail being more of an issue than, tornadoes. Having said that, you still want to be inside, away from windows and doors, so that you're staying safe as these storms come through, especially if they've got some of that larger hail. We haven't had a lot of reports of hail that's more than an inch in diameter lately, but there for a while west of St. Louis, we were looking at 2+ inch diameter hail, so the size, of an egg or larger. You still have the tornado warning up here into Bond County. That storm, yeah, it's still got some, some punch to it, but it does look like it's beginning to ease a little bit, and maybe not as much punch as it had. Now, we still say that, and there's still the potential that we've got a little bit of circulations going on there and maybe trying to spin something up. So we still want you in your safe place here for just a little bit longer for these storms that are exiting Macoupin County. That's a severe thunderstorm warning for most of the central and southern portions of Montgomery County, with the exception of that area that's right in southeast and south central Montgomery County. That is still under the tornado warning. Again, west of St. Louis, the threat of severe weather is over. It has ended. Skies are trying to clear, even though more showers are developing back into mid-Missouri. That's actually with the colder air rushing in and the cold front itself. So, I think here around 8 o'clock, for those of you, if we have all of our tornado warnings done at 8 o'clock, what we will do is we will go back to NBC programming, and we will stay with you on 5+ and streaming on 5+ and on the KSDK app and on KSDK.com until we can get this line of thunderstorms completely out of the area. But the threat level seems to be diminishing somewhat. So if the tornado warnings expire here in about 8 minutes, if that truly goes down, then we're going to switch more to a digital coverage and get you back to NBC programming for the remainder of the evening while our crews work to get more information on the damage across the area. What we can't tell you is that on the Missouri side, we're around 30,000 Ameren customers, especially in St. Louis County and Jefferson County being the top two, with power out right now. And so given the fact that we have seen so many reports of trees down and some roof damage, all of that nature, and the fact that we've also had, the situation with power lines knocked down, it's going to take a little while for Ameren to get that back together, because not all the damage is concentrated in one spot. You can see the dust being picked up here. That's potentially a tornado that's reaching the ground. Hard to say from our vantage point here, but certainly can see the dust being picked up off the ground and lifting into the clouds. So I can't confirm it one way or the other, but certainly qualifies under the scary looking clouds for sure.
Definitely.
When you see something like that. So again, it's the leading edge of this line as it's pushing closer to the Interstate 57 corridor that we're continuing to monitor for the potential of severe weather. So you folks right along and in that line, that's where you need to be on guard for the potential something spins up. And the tornado watch does continue in those areas, Gary.
Yeah, and like we continue to mention as well, the sun has been down for a few minutes. It's obviously moved toward an area where the sun has been down a little sooner. So, as it meets that environment that's not as favorable, it's obviously going to weaken just to some degree in itself because of that, right? So it's just not as favorable here, but we're also not looking at those velocity areas quite as strong as they were, because even if we loop them and we kind of show you what we have been dealing with, you look at some of these areas that it was so obviously where we had those bright colors and it moved through, we're not seeing that so much anymore. So even as it bounces back and forth between different radars, which is why you're going to see the mix of colors here, we're not seeing those defined areas of bright green and bright red, meaning that things are weakening. And while you may see those, like that video we just showed you, even though you're not going to be able to see it because it's dark, but where the wind is swirling around just a little bit, you may get a brief spin or a brief gust of wind. But I think the biggest thing that you're going to see right now is 60+ mile-an-hour wind as these storms move off to the east. Earlier, the hail, though, was very, very significant. Look how big this hail was. And this is many areas had hail. This specifically was in Herman. And I think the Missouri side got more hail than anything, where we had up to tennis ball size hail in some cases, larger than golf balls. We had up to baseball size hail in some cases. There you see in Gray Summit, and that was a core of hail that was very significant and, you know, did a lot of damage. And so that's why we've stayed on with you so long before we ended up getting those tornadoes in Pacific as well. You see that large hail, up to maybe 225 in diameter hail. So I mean, that's somewhere between tennis ball and baseball size hail. So pretty significant. We have not seen that threat quite as much as we start to see, like I said, the mix of colors. It's part of it is it's moving to the other radars right on the edge there. But the bottom line as we monitor and analyze this is we're not seeing the defined circulations along the leading edge of this, even as we show you what's going on here. But you know, the main thing for that is the fact that you show it, Scott, and it's behind you. You almost see it weakening a little bit as well, just on the radar. The scans the last few minutes, just looking at it, the bright reds and certainly not the pinks that were showing up with the hail core. That's starting to weaken as it moves off to the east, which is a good sign.
Yeah, and you know, we've got new warnings, but there's severe thunderstorm warnings with that tornado possible tag. In other words, yeah, we're still seeing some circulations and something may spin up, but you know, it's not as significant as what we were looking at earlier. So that includes Fayette County and also down into Marion and Jefferson counties in Illinois. Basically along your Interstate 57 corridor here is where those warnings are. I want to let you know that Metrolink is reporting some power problems on the Illinois side. So Metrolink not currently operating between Memorial Hospital and the Shiloh Scott Metrolink stations. That's due to power problems. So they will have station shuttles transporting riders, but that means 30 to 60 minute delays. And Metrolink will continue to update that scenario as we move through the evening hours. Of course, that's part of the 30 to maybe 35,000 customers without power from Jefferson County into St. Louis County and then over into the Metro East across St. Clair, parts of Madison County down into Monroe County. The line of thunderstorms continuing to press on to the east. These tornado warnings that are in effect here, eastern portions of Washington County in Illinois, that's about to expire. And as it does so, it looks like the threat is mainly going to be for the gusty winds and the torrential rain. Also in this area here to the north, these thunderstorms that have the tornado warnings associated with them into Bond County, into parts of Macoupin and Montgomery counties, they probably are going to be replaced here. It looks like the National Weather Service is replacing them with just severe thunderstorm warnings. So with that being said, I'll get you a couple of quick updates here in just a second, but I want to let the control room know that we'll try to get back to NBC here on 5 on Your Side at 8 o'clock. Is that okay? Okay, and then we will stay streaming on 5 Plus and on KSDK.com and on the 5 on Your Side app so that we can continue to give the folks east of St. Louis, while the tornado threat seems to have diminished, you still want to be tracking those severe thunderstorms, so we're going to track those with you. Gary and I will stick with you until that threat is completely over. So that's about 2 minutes from now. So we've had reports around Valley Park, Peerless Park, that's down along 141, 44, possible tornado earlier this evening. There is some damage to some roofs in that area, some tree limbs down, some branches down. We also have in those areas the potential that we're dealing with more additional power outages. And again, Ameren's going to take a while. They're spread out all over the place. So there's a lot of things they got to do to try to track it through as we head through the remainder of the evening to get that power back on. But there have been numerous reports of damage. So far as we know, and we have not heard any otherwise, we've had no reports of any injuries, which is good to hear tonight. And that's kind of why we're here, to try to keep everybody safe and let you know what to do. So we're getting to the point where it's just going to be severe thunderstorm warnings here, generally along that line, the Interstate 57 corridor. We'll continue to monitor those with you on 5 Plus. Gary, do you have any final thoughts here as we see what's going on?
You know, I think it's nice to see that. I would like to say that, you know, obviously you still have some pretty significant lightning behind it. I want to say that these severe thunderstorm warnings right now seem to be much different than the ones that we had earlier, where we had severe thunderstorm warnings where we talked to you for a significant amount of time about the golf ball, tennis ball, and baseball sized hail. That is not a threat. Right now, these are some of the more common severe thunderstorm warnings that we would probably bring you with, maybe up to quarter size hail. but most likely just because of a 60-mile-an-hour wind damage threat. And it still needs to be taken seriously. But there have been really different categories of severe thunderstorms to golf ball size hail to, of course, confirmed tornadoes tonight, Scott.
All right, we'll send it to NBC, but we'll stay with you on 5+. All right, everybody, welcome back. 5+. We're continuing our storm alert coverage. Come on in, Jeff. Talk to me.
Yeah.
Tell me what you need. What you need, Jeff?
We're on 5.
Okay,
we're
thanks.
on 5+.
Okay.
We're just saying hello.
Yeah, we're staying on 5+, and we're going to stick with you here until we get this line of thunderstorms completely out of our area. Okay, so the really intense storms seem to have weakened considerably. That's good news. It doesn't look like there's nearly as much of a tornado threat along this line off to the east of St. Louis. That being said, the tornado watch does still continue until 10 o'clock there as these storms are pushing over into Fayette County, into Marion County, and then down into Jefferson County. So these are the areas where we will continue to monitor for the potential of additional severe weather threats here over the course of the next hour or so. By 9 o'clock, this should completely be out of our area. And you can really see there's an overall general weakening trend with these storms as they are pressing east. Now, we've had some spin-up circulations. Earlier, we had, the heavy rain, the large hail, some cases tennis ball size hail reported with these storms. That'll do a lot of damage, but we haven't seen that here of late. We have seen more on the order of smaller hail and wind gusts between 55 and 65 miles per hour, which if you got to take, you don't want the giant size hail, which we had earlier. So that's the good news that we have for you. Now, yes, there's still a lot of rain around St. Louis. St. Louis City SC is in a weather delay, and they will, get back with us on when they're going to start that game. But I can pretty much assure you, they'll probably wait another hour. It'd be another hour. It might be 9:30 or so before they finally get that match going. But MLS will make that decision over at City Park here as they continue to monitor these storms passing through the area. But the severe threat is definitely confined to our far eastern counties now. The one county in our viewing area that doesn't have a warning off to the east of St. Louis, or that hasn't had so far today, is Clay County. So our friends over in Flora and Louisville, you may get in on it, but the good news is, as you can see that storm as it's pushing towards the Salem area, it is beginning to weaken quite a bit. Not nearly as intense as it was, and the overall area east of St. Louis is much less favorable for severe weather compared to the area that we had, the air that the line of storms was moving in earlier with. So, as those storms were coming in from the west, out to our west, we knew we were going to have issues with big hail, and we did. And then as we got closer into the metro area, we not only were dealing with large hail, but also started to see those circulations and some spin there, and maybe even a few tornadoes. We can't really confirm many of the tornadoes at this point. We did see some debris signatures over in Hecker, Illinois, over in St. Clair County. and back. It looked like down into Randolph County in Illinois. So we're pretty confident something was on the ground, at least briefly. But there's also other areas that the National Weather Service will be investigating as we head into tomorrow once things settle down. I got to tell you, tomorrow is not going to be a very pleasant day around St. Louis. So here's your line of showers and thunderstorms pressing off to the east. The overall flavor is for this activity to weaken and to do so considerably as we head through the next 30 minutes or so. I do want to look and see what we've got. I was looking at some of the cameras earlier. Let me go give you the camera here out in Weldon Spring. What we're seeing there is not nearly the wind that we had earlier. So it looks like the tree is kind of settled down a little bit. So that's good news. Still some rain there, but it has settled down. And, if I don't know if I can get the other cameras up. I don't think I can get them up here, but maybe this one will come back here in a second. If I just pop it up, it'll pop in here in just a minute. It takes a second to load the St. Charles camera. And there it comes. It'll pop up here in a few seconds. This is the one that's right at St. Charles near Zumbel, just to the east of Zumbel. Still raining out in St. Charles, but we can at least see traffic is moving along there. So that's good news. And notice we're down to 59 degrees. So yeah, it's a big drop in the temperatures across the area as that colder air is starting to move in. Now, one other thing we've been dealing with in some of this hilly terrain going west and southwest of St. Louis, we still have that flash flood warning. You kind of got a double dose of storms here in West St. Louis County, western portions of Jefferson County, and then back into Franklin County. And because of that, we saw some incredible rainfall rates and just truly incredible rainfall. And so we still have some draining water. You just don't drain that quickly. So we're still watching that water drain in those areas. So, don't drive through flooded roads, especially now that it's getting dark around the St. Louis area. You can't see when things are flooded out, but it's just rain in the metro area right now. If I add on the lightning, I'm sure there's still a fair amount of lightning in there. And yeah, there surely is. Occasionally you see it popping up. And that's gonna cause, City SC, the bolts are really small there, but that will cause City SC to delay a little bit as we go through the evening hours. Let me see if I can get it just a little bit bigger so you can see some of those lightning bolts. There they are. That's probably too big, but you kind of get the gist of it. So if we just loop this over the last hour or so, I'm going to save that. Let me just loop that. You see, we still have some of those bolts popping down. Most of it was off to the east of St. Louis, but you still have some cloud-to-ground lightning. I'd bet they'd still be in a lightning delay 45 minutes from now. So at the earliest, one would think they probably won't get back into soccer here until sometime after 9 o'clock, possibly closer to 10 o'clock. But we're still waiting to hear from Major League Baseball. And while we wait to hear, or Major League Soccer, sorry. And while we wait to hear from them, we still have severe thunderstorm warnings that do include over in Fayette County, Marion County, and Jefferson County in Illinois, and a portion there of Montgomery County. And it's really along that leading edge where you get the strongest of the winds. Of course, there's quite a bit of a light show going on with cloud-to-ground lightning there. And everything is moving off towards the east and to the northeast at this point. So we're going to continue to monitor this right on through the evening hours. You've got another hour or so on these warnings. And I really think, if you look down here at the storms that are down coming into Marion County, for instance, there is some significant weakening, it looks like, of the intensity of these storms, which would be great because that means maybe once these storms get to the eastern part of Marion County, we're not getting the reports of damage or gusty winds or hail. And maybe over in Clay County, you don't get a warning. But that's what we've got right now. You still have some pretty decent rain around St. Louis. And it's going to take a little while longer before that gets up any, gets out of here. So it's another 45 minutes to an hour or so. What we're hearing now from Clayton, Missouri, some few tree limbs and some small objects blown around. A storm chaser measured a 71 mile per hour wind gust when the initial storms passed there. And again, that's unconfirmed at this point, but we do have a large number of reports of trees down, some power lines down. The power outages have certainly been, I'd say, extensive. I mean, we've seen worse for sure, but they've still been pretty extensive around the St. Louis area. And I'm going to get a little update on those numbers for you as you look at the radar. Again, if you're over in Fayette County, Montgomery County, Marion County, Jefferson County in Illinois, all to the east of St. Louis, that's where our severe weather threat is right now. And this is really, that's it. So once that's over, it's over. So in Washington County, we're seeing Washington County, Illinois, about 335 customers without power. St. Clair County has about 4,000 some odd customers. And then in Monroe County, about 367. Of course, you have, a huge number of people that get their power in St. Clair County because the population is much larger. But then you go up into Madison County, Illinois, and you're not really looking at that many power outages. We're still around 12,000 in Jefferson County and around 16,000 in St. Louis County. City of St. Louis is close to 4,000. And we got a fair number out down in St. Francis County too, with about 1,500 customers without power there. So again, the severe weather threat for the metro area, it is over. As we look back to our west, there's still some rain, but that back edge is certainly getting closer. Even some clearing down 44 there for a time. Although there are a few more showers that are trying to develop down there, but there will not be any additional severe weather west of the Mississippi in our area tonight. It's all focused here off to the east, and that leading edge is where we're seeing the worst of it, from Montgomery County, Illinois, south, eastern portions of Bond County into Fayette County, and that includes the area over Ren, Vandalia. It may, you're probably getting a pretty good light show off to your west in St. Elmo. And then, going down towards Kim Monday, you're going to get in on it in about 15, 20 minutes, starting to move into Salem and Centralia right now. So again, these are the storms we've been tracking all evening, and the ones that have we've really had such a large number of reports that have come in during the course of the last couple of hours. And, it doesn't seem like we've had reports of, and I'm happy about this, it doesn't seem like we've had a lot of reports of injuries. In fact, no reports of any injuries. So we're really happy about that, but we just don't know for sure exactly what we've got. And, those reports tend to lag, but we know we do have a lot of reports of tree damage and power outages and all that good stuff that's associated with severe thunderstorms. So the bottom line is, still stay inside and in your safe place if you're off to the east of St. Louis, certainly. But the threat of severe weather is really winding down across our area. In fact, it's non-existent as you go back to the west of St. Louis. So,
I'm starting to see those watches drop off.
Yeah, we're starting to see they're trimming the watches. In fact, the tornado watch has really been trimmed back. It's really, the tornado watch exists where there's severe thunderstorm warnings right now, and that's pretty much it. So, and Gary Frank's been with me this afternoon too. We've all been here just kind of hanging out and tracking these storms, talking a lot today. That's for sure.
Staying busy. And, we have obviously had damage reports. And not at all the times where we have these tornado warnings do they come to fruition. And we certainly don't want that. But we've at least been able to give you a heads up on some of these because they've been moving between 30 and 40 miles an hour. So once again, and if you've been following along, especially from Mount Vernon to Salem, and I know the last thing you want to see is the fact that we've got more storms in Salem. But the good note that you mentioned is the fact that we're starting to see this flatten out a little bit on the edge. And if you've been following along, we talked about some of these notches in, even as I zoom in just a little bit more. And I'll play around with this a little bit here. And I want to zoom in and show you some of these notches and kind of how this has settled in. Where we had seen more things like this north of Mount Vernon, but behind this, And that's where we had some of that rotation earlier. And that's why the tornado threat not only increased, but became an issue as that storm moved off to the east. But when we see it look more like this, south of Mount Vernon to Spring Garden, where it's a little bit flatter on the edge, that suggests that that storm is that flattening out, and it's also producing those 50 to 60 plus mile an hour wind. So while we don't want that, it perhaps is better than the alternative, which we are not seeing at the moment. So that's a positive thing. One of the things that we'll also look at is how much wind that we had. We had wind gusts upwards of 67 miles an hour in Lambert. And, you know, just one thing to note here is the fact that we had temperatures have fallen in the 50s. If you haven't gone outside for a while, like me, it's going to be remarkably different, as Scott has mentioned, tomorrow. So temps in the low 70s, mid 50s here, Chesterfield, Warrenton, Columbia, 57, and Jeff City as well. And so as we get back to the radar, once again, we still have a small handful of severe thunderstorm warnings in place on the Illinois side, and that's why we're going to continue to keep you posted about those. And really from Salem to Vandalia, these are the areas that I want to look at. And I also want to monitor the velocity here in just a little bit. But when it comes to how much longer these severe thunderstorm warnings are in place, it's until 8:30. So it's another 14 minutes. And that's likely when we're probably going to give you a little bit of a break here. You'll notice how it's bowed out just a little bit more. And so, you know, we've got a couple of these areas as we gradually are starting to see them wind down just a little bit more here from Kimundi and Kaskaskia. You know, we continue to see, you know, most of this is starting to wind down here gradually. But it's still going to impact your travel. It's still going to impact you with those wind gusts upwards of 60 miles an hour here as we move a little further south. Still, as we mentioned, that severe thunderstorm warning in place through Salem until 8:30, but we're just minutes away from this winding down here. And so as the wind damage threat is probably the main threat here at this point with wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour. Behind it, you still have some pretty significant rain when it comes to the amount of rain that's falling. Even just because it is moving slowly, I can queue up just this area, and you're talking about upwards of somewhere between 3/4 of an inch to an inch per hour rainfall rates. So significant rain that's probably going to take an hour and a half to move out, depending on where you are. So you're going to pick up at least another ½ inch, probably another 1.5 inches on the high side in between that. So once again, as we look at things, this is racing through Salem. It's breaking up a little bit. It is weakening to some degree south of Mount Vernon into Carbondale. But even it is raining and we have a few rumbles of thunder in the St. Louis area, it is starting to calm down behind that. And we may still have a few showers. There's still flooding concerns where we had those storms that move very slowly. But we are still continuing to see this at least settle down from a standpoint of the moderate rainfall that pushes off to the east. So it's going to take some time, but within the next 10 to 15 minutes here, as we look at some of the most recent things, you know, we just have thunderstorm reports that, you know, large tree branches down on a power line. And, you know, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that this leading edge is moving through. And that's why you have that severe thunderstorm warning. Not only that, but because you have, it's dark. We need to prepare you for this. You'll obviously hear the thunder. There are multiple flashes of lightning as this continues to move through. But we're almost done with the rain, not only on the Missouri side, but it's taking its time. So we're getting there when it comes to the back edge of the rain. Eureka, Wildwood, Cedar Hill, a lot of these areas are finally starting to see rain that comes to a close. But, you know, it's going to take some time here for that to finally push through. But we'll get there, I think, by 10 o'clock that we have Vandalia. You still see, and while it's not really showing up on this velocity product all that much, you can kind of see how it is leveling out from a standpoint of the way that this looks. And I want to point this out to you because you see this here from Salem. It's more of this bow shape, right? And that's what we so often talk about as it moves this way. And so as a result, that's the straight line wind threat. We don't have those little notches in between here that we still continue to see, you know, some of those brief areas here as we look ahead. But, you know, that's the main thing for us as we look at, you know, a few spots with some of those wind gusts between 50 and 60 miles an hour, they've been the most common here, but we don't have those mixed colors where we have toward and away from the radar. We just don't have that at this point. And so that's at least a positive for us when it comes to the evolution of the storm as it moves off to the east. So once again, severe thunderstorm warning still in place for just another small handful of minutes, but we're almost able to give you an all clear in many cases where this just turns to thunderstorms with still a pretty significant amount of lightning behind it. But it's the leading edge that's really, you know, from a standpoint of mileage, if we're going to look at, you know, just what areas are impacted, it's this right here. And this is about a 25-mile gap from the leading edge of this to Mount Vernon. Same for Vandalia. It's about 25 miles of storm. So, you know, as this moves off to the east at about 40 or so miles an hour, and it's probably going to pick up speed once it bows out that way as well, I think what you're going to notice is, you know, that's going to move out and it's going to transition to a steady rain with maybe 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts, but also mainly just the fact that it's not severe anymore. And so we're finally going to get a little bit of a break from that. The flooding threat still continues, but will wind down as we look at some of the flash flooding that we've had. We've got multiple areas of flash flooding, but this is until 10:15. It's 2 to 3 inches of rain that have fallen very, very quickly, a very saturated area, simply because we got that rain earlier. Things were soft, and the amount of rain that we've got in a brief period of time was on the higher side. So those are a couple of things that we'll look at here. But for the most part, you know, it's just been one of those things where as we continue to look at that storm that moves off to the east, we'll still, you know, monitor that wind threat here from Mount Vernon into Salem and eventually out of our area completely, Scott. So it looks like it's the nice part about it is here within the next 5 or so minutes, we'll really be able to eliminate any of these threats. I think that's the way it looks like to me at this moment for the most part. But we'll get there here in time. It's just a matter of, it's not if but when. We obviously are on the Missouri side much quieter. I think if you go outside and you notice that it's not in the 70s anymore and humid and it's about 55 degrees, you can pretty much guarantee that your severe weather threat is over, and you will notice a significant difference for yourself tomorrow.
Yeah.
But that's what we're getting toward, and we've finally gotten to that point where the storm has evolved into that bow shape, and we can almost wind down our severe weather coverage and keep you posted. But there are definitely many areas that have damage. We have multiple reporters that I went and talked to briefly once we transitioned from being on the air to 5+ that they're down there, they're seeing a few things, and they're going to report. And the other thing is, now that it's dark in the morning, we're going to get some pretty good drone footage as the National Weather Service surveys those confirmed tornadoes that we had on the ground and exactly gives us what occurred.
Yeah, and you know, the number of reports, they're still coming in. These storm reports, a lot of times what we have found is you have, you know, there's a 30, maybe 90-minute window where the storm reports kind of filter in after the storm. So while we can anticipate what we're seeing on the radar, that's something that's, you know, it's happening, we don't actually get ground truth right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit for those reports to filter in. But you look at this map and you see all the hail reports, especially initially. You know, we started out with hail up to the size of baseballs, maybe larger, out there in parts of Franklin and Gasconade County in a few places. We had that 97-mile-per-hour wind gust that was recorded at the Vichy-Rolla Airport, so that's very close to Vichy in Marys County. And that storm produced a lot of damage reports here along 44. Many hail reports, more hail reports than anything else. And you see the back edge of this is pushing through now, but we saw that flash flood warning because of the heavy rain and the continual drainage that's happening right now. So you see in the metro area, we're starting to get a few more reports of trees down, branches down. We know we've had some power outages that have been pretty extensive across St. Louis County, down into Jefferson County, and then across the river into Madison County and Monroe counties. Those seem to be the hardest hit areas as far as close to St. Louis, where we've seen the greatest number of threats. We also had down towards Hecker, what we believe to be a confirmed tornado down there. That was on the radar, we could tell. And now, we're not getting near the reports off to the east of St. Louis. Things are settling some here as these storms continue to show signs of weakening. So at the moment, we have our severe thunderstorm warning for the central and eastern portions of Fayette County. That does include Vandalia, although it looks like the most intense part of the storm is just off to the north-northeast. And then you go down into Marion County, and it's generally along 57 north of Salem and to the east of Salem, where we still have that severe thunderstorm warning. Jefferson County in Illinois, we still have the severe thunderstorm warning, and it looks like the worst of that's going to be east of Interstate 57. National Weather Service up there in Lincoln, Illinois did just post a severe thunderstorm warning for the Effingham area, so those storms will push in there. But you got to believe the storms are weakening some over Marion County, and they may not push a warning out for Clay County, because it doesn't look like it's quite as impressive in Clay County as it does in Effingham County, at least what's lined up to move through those areas. So that's what we've got. So we have not heard of any injuries officially here at 5 on Your Side, but we did hear, I believe the Highway Patrol said they had one injury from a crash, a minor injury that occurred during the event. But of course that would be somewhat weather related. But no, we haven't heard of anybody being injured by, falling trees or trees on cars, or injured by the hail, which those are very real threats when you're dealing with chunks of ice the size of baseballs flying down from the sky. So again, a lot of reports across the St. Louis area. We're finally starting to see the back edge of the rain push through the metro now. So you still have it inside the 270 loop. It's still raining pretty good. It's also pretty chilly as temperatures have really, really cooled down. But, the severe weather threat's definitely over for St. Louis. I haven't heard, Gary, from City SC. I know I've been trying to follow them all afternoon long. Yeah. Last we heard is they're in a weather delay, and when MLS says they can go, they will let you know.
Yeah, I got buddies chirping me, should I go to this game? Why is it, and I don't know that we've got any information here, so. The last communication was 58 minutes ago, that, they still have a weather delay. And there's still been some rumbles of thunder and some lightning in the metro. So traditionally you have to wait for 20 minutes. I got to believe they didn't put the players out on the field to even warm up for this thing. No.
So
you had all those people that were crammed out, and so if they got moved from when the tornado warning was over, one would think they would have had it gone somewhere away from lightning. So were they in the concourse?
Yeah, I don't know where all they went. I know, City. Oh, Gary, your mic is not on. Well, that's okay. Okay, so, the thing of it is here, I'm looking at, I got a tweet somewhere. Their policy, they actually have a really good policy because they are a storm-ready thing. They're storm-ready. They've worked with the Weather Service and emergency managers to find that safe spot. And so, whenever they have lightning within 8 miles, which definitely we've met that criteria in the last few hours, or 60-mile-an-hour winds, they enter a shelter-in-place protocol. And, they tell people if they've already opened the gates, they tell people to do that. And then they say, they've got the places marked. So if you're inside City Park, they'll get you to where you need to be. But if you're outside, they're shutting those gates down, I think, at least for part of it. But the Monita Premium Entry and the Ultra Club lobby gates open for ticketed guests if you're outside the park, to shelter-in-place protocol. And then all the other gates close during the shelter-in-place. And you basically are, go back to your car or go to the parking garage at 20th and Olive is the safe place to be there. That's what they have. So here's the lowdown. The back edge of this rain continues to push through the metro area. It's been quite an evening of storms. Fortunately, no, really large tornadoes that we're aware of. Quick spin-ups here and there. Yes, they do the damage. Yes, it causes problems. But in the scheme of things, I'd say we did pretty well, and we're okay with that. So, I'm just looking at, folks that have been tweeting us and letting us know the pictures. We see a lot of the pictures and checking in with with the folks over, at the Weather Service and the emergency managers. We just had a meeting this week talking about a similar scenario and how to do warnings and how, what the thinking is on their part and, what our response is. And so we all work together pretty well as a team. And that threat for severe weather really continues to diminish. It's certainly over for most of us. It's really along and east of the Interstate 57 corridor in Marion County and in Jefferson County. And then you still have a couple of, frisky storms that are out there from about Vandalia off to the east. They'll head towards Effingham. But the storms that are over Marion County as they're moving to the east-northeast area, they look like they're weakening. So maybe they're not going to be a problem for the folks around Flora.
Well, and I think, like I was mentioned earlier, we're to that point where most of these storms, it's on. It's just doing something weird.
Yeah, it's flashing.
That's okay.
Well,
Anyway, we tried.
there you
Anyway,
go.
that's the nice part. At
Let's
least
see.
it did this one. Let's see, it's not working. Now it's dead completely. And they just changed the battery. Well, that's what happens.
Okay.
That
well.
means we've been talking for a while.
And we have been talking for quite a bit. That's the problem with wireless capabilities that we have now. Back in the old days, we all had corded mics and you had to drag them around with you with the cable and the cord. And these days, everything's wireless. And when the batteries die, well, you can't be heard. So the warning has now expired in Marion County. So that's good news. I honestly believe that, I don't know if we're going to get one for Flora or not, for Clay County. That's going to be out of Lincoln. They already did Effingham County, but you've got a pretty good storm coming across Fayette County right now. That looks a little more robust. Still have that warning up down into Jefferson County in Illinois. And that storm looks like it's probably producing a bit of some hail in there, certainly, and probably some pretty gusty winds too. Just going to check in on that. Oh yeah, we got a lot of gusty winds in there. But it doesn't look like any gate-to-gate shear. So that's
Good news is I switched the batteries. I know you guys are really looking forward to hearing from me again. No, I switched the battery. It's just such a set of bad batteries. That's all good. But you're absolutely right, Scott. I think the main thing for us is the fact that we've kind of gone from two different types of severe weather where we had obviously golf ball, baseball-sized hail, severe thunderstorms for that, and then we had the tornadoes. And now it has worked its way into just a wind damage threat where it's 40 to 60 miles an hour. And I think we're trending on the lower side of that now where it's 40 maybe, 50 maybe, and storms that are very loud and carry a lot of lightning and probably are going to do some damage in itself in that regard. But, in kinds of severe thunderstorms that we bring to your attention, this would certainly be on the lower end where the standard severe thunderstorm warning of 58 plus mile an hour wind or 1 inch hail, which is quarter size, we're seeing something a little bit less than that. And we saw something that was more significant than that with over 70, over 90 mile an hour wind and some very large hail today. So we've kind of seen just about all of it that we can get, but it is winding down now as temperatures are in the 50s on the Missouri side, pretty significant. So as this moves off to the east, like I said, it's still going to be a thunderstorm threat for the next hour to hour and a half. I wouldn't even be surprised if some of this, to some degree, lingers a little bit when we join you again at 10. But I know just talking to some of our team on the other side, they're preparing some reports and sharing some damage that they've already seen. So we're going to have a lot for you coming up at 10 here. So that's just kind of the main thing that we're going to look ahead for is being prepared for that. But for the most part, these storms are really winding down in that sense.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. We'll take that. Let's get them out of here. Let's zip them along. The storms there that are over eastern portions of Marion County continue to weaken. That's great news. Even the storm up in Fayette County as it heads towards St. Elmo and Vandalia, it's not showing quite the punch that it had just a few scans ago. Kind of look at that and you can see, there's still kind of some cell mergers going on there and some wonky stuff, but it's going to move along and zip on out. And then, you go down to the south and we still have the eastern portions of Jefferson County, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how many people that far to the east are even able to get the signal of Channel 5, but I'm sure we have a few people over there along Interstate 64 down in Jefferson County that are watching on 5+. Those of you that are watching around the metro area, the back edge of the rain getting closer. see if we can add some lightning in there. I'll take it off and add it again. Still got a couple of bolts around the St. Louis area. So we still have some rumbles of thunder, and you're going to have some issues here briefly. I do want to check on what the timing is on that thing in Paducah. I don't know that they've had much more going on. That thing is expected to expire at 8:45, but the severe part of that storm, Gary, has pretty much moved out of our area because we only really get the northwest third of Jefferson County in Illinois. I'm going to go up here, go to the north. Yeah, we still got some good precipitation rates there. So, there's that one cell here. I'm just going to put on a check there. Oh, it's not going to give me that. Okay, don't want that. There we go. So that also is to 8:45, but it seems like it's winding down right now. If we put a hail scope on that, let's see what we got. This area off to the east of Ramsey, yeah. See, our hail sizes have come way, way down. So, at this point, I think, you've got the one warning there in Fayette County and in Jefferson County. Those are the two. But the severe weather threat really seems to have diminished in those areas. And so I think with that in mind, we're going to start trying to wrap things up with our coverage for now so we can kind of get our people regrouped here for what's going to happen for 10 o'clock. So here's what we know. We know we had a pretty intense line of thunderstorms come through St. Louis. We had spots that west and southwest of St. Louis that picked up to baseball-size hail, maybe even larger than that at some times. But by the time that got into the metro area, it was mostly 1 to 2 inch hail. Still, that's enough to cause a lot of roof damage and a lot of damage to cars. Lots of reports of 50 to 70 mile per hour winds with this as well. And then we did have those circulations showing up and the possibility that, yes, we have had some tornadoes, albeit brief and quick hitting, but certainly that possibility exists. We will not get confirmation on that until storm surveys can happen, and that's not going to happen until tomorrow, with the exception of the one in Hecker. I think we can pretty much say over in Hecker, Illinois, emergency management is reporting some significant damage in that area, a lot of power outages, a lot of trees down, and we had reports of a tornado from spotters along with the radar indicating tornado there. So I think that's safe to say that probably would be confirmed pretty easily for tomorrow morning. But the threat of severe weather winding down very quickly now, and the rain will continue to ease off to the east. The colder temperatures are not easing in, they're blasting in, and we will deal with that overnight tonight into tomorrow. Tomorrow will be less than a stellar day in St. Louis, but you won't have hail dropping out of the sky or tornadoes. So, but by the same token, Gary, I think we're going to be pushing to get to 50 degrees tomorrow in some cases.
Seems like a struggle. 45 might be a struggle.
Yeah, so it's going to be an adjustment. All right, that's going to wrap up our coverage on 5 Plus tonight and on KSDK.com. We're glad you have stayed with us this evening. I'm Scott Connell and Gary Frank. We've been in the Weather Center this evening. Crews out in the field prepping to get you the latest information for tonight at 10 o'clock. And we'll see you on News Channel 5, 5 on your side.